All right, start recording in three, two, and one. Hey, and welcome back to the Reserve Squad Midweek Show, a soccer podcast covering all things in the EPL from a bench perspective. I'm your Spin, and this is your Week 26 review episode. Uh, leading off, we didn't have a full week of action, but I mean, really, most of the as far as table moves happened at the bottom. So leading off, I guess I'll just start with that, and then the other story will be the Carabao final featuring Liverpool and Chelsea, and I'll probably spend the majority of the first hour, maybe even the full hour, just kind of recapping that what I think the title means to Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp, and basically what maybe this means for Chelsea as well. There are a lot of a lot of storylines to hit on with that game, even though it went to 0-0 all the way till like the 127th minute, which we'll get into as well. 0-0, you kind of expect it to be kind of a bit of a maybe a dull affair. It was anything but. There was a lot of drama and a lot of action that still happened. So I'll happily move on to that. But first to kind of tee us off, Everton draw Brighton, and maybe it could have even been better. I mean, it's a good thing for Everton to just kind of get some points here, but and they did get some positive news by getting some points rewarded back to them, which happened over the week as well. But the reason why I say that is they were actually winning the game, and then in the final few minutes of the game, I believe Brighton have a corner kick and ball sent in, and Lewis Dunk is able to get Brighton a point back. And it's a very weird game because Brighton really did dominate the entire game. And the reason why I say that, normally you would expect that, but the reason why I say that is that Brighton had like 70% of the ball in the second half. They had 13 shots. They outshot Everton a lot in the second half as well. And Brighton were playing down a man. So that's not necessarily the best look for Sean Dyche's Everton, but it doesn't matter because they get a point here and they also get some points added to them in the table, and that took them above Brentford. Another team in trouble is Nottingham Forest, and they got a little thumped by Aston Villa. But they did make some things a little interesting with a mini comeback. But the way they started the first half just kind of too much too far. And then when it looked like maybe they could get back in the game, they had a horrid giveaway that basically gave Villa the fourth goal and basically killed the game off. Crystal Palace welcomed Burnley to their ground and pressed Burnley into making some mistakes at the back. Not the first team to do it, but it was interesting to see Crystal Palace kind of playing this kind of way. I don't feel like Hodgson was doing this kind of stuff. This kind of high pressing. It looks like Crystal Palace are going to try to roll out maybe a back three, a little different formation, maybe under this new manager Oliver Glasnow, and they get lucky because well they forced their luck because they pressed Burnley into making a mistake at the back. It's a hard pass back by the Burnley keeper, young keeper. I think he's only 20 years old, 21 years old, and he has a hard pass basically into absolute danger area. It looks like I think it's Jefferson Lerma is about to basically get the ball basically in the Burnley penalty area, and before he can even get a shot off, because it seems like Trafford is almost out of position as well. Uh, the Burnley player, I think it's Brownhill, goes to ground, brings him down, and it's for sure stopping a goal scoring opportunity. It was 0-0 going into the second half, and then once Crystal Palace got one, they were able to get a quickly two more, thanks by a sub Mateus Franca. So Glasnow immediately showing that he can have some faith a little bit in some of his youthful guys, because I think this is only 18, and he's gotten some moments to come on, but it didn't seem like Hodgson was playing him much. Now this could be just out of desperation because he just doesn't have anyone else. We also saw Amadou Amaduna, a midfielder, come on for them as well, and he helped kind of change a little bit of that second half. So it's a really good debut for Oliver Glasnow. And then really, it's just unfortunate at the moment for Brentford, who are in the thick of this relegation fight. I think they do have a 5 point edge over Luton, which will help them, but they're struggling now. They're kind of in free fall mode, and it definitely doesn't help that Everton are getting some points back. But there's still an investigation out on Everton and Nottingham Forest, so that could maybe help Brentford. But another thing that's factoring in here is they've lost Ethan Pennick to an ankle injury. They might get him back before the end of March. And yesterday they lost Ben Mee when the game was still 1 or 2-1. It was still a one goal game. They started the game off horribly. allowing Jared Bowen to get 2 quick goals. I think after the first 12 minutes, they were able to somewhat scrape back a little bit. But I mean, West Ham had been in freefall mode as well, and that they ended that first half with 15 shots. That's just not something that West Ham has been doing all season, really. And West Ham were finally able to get healthy themselves. They finally had Lucas Paqueta back. They finally had Kudus and Bowen be able to play again. They had Alvarez on the field as well, and West Ham, to their credit, were quite good in that first half. So Brentford are in a bit of a slide at the minute, and it doesn't help that they're losing two of their most important center back pieces. So we'll spend a little time at the end speaking a little bit about Brentford. Now, one thing you can say is they did show some fight. They showed some fight to rebound after that really hard 15-minute start. They ended the half actually quite well. And then after it was a 4-1 kind of game, when the game was kind of over and West Ham were just kind of sitting back and inviting pressure, Brentford did enough to actually, force the West Ham keeper Areola into some pretty big saves. So Weiser came on, got a goal. Damsgaard came on as a sub and got an assist. So there were maybe some positives in the defeat, but they're only, I think it's just Nottingham Forest, and then it's Luton with the 5 point edge, and that can easily go away. Brentford, and the schedule doesn't not get easier. They have Chelsea. You don't really know what Chelsea's going to turn up, which we're about to get into, and then I think it's maybe they have someone like Burnley in there, but it's like Man United, it's Aston Villa, it's Brighton, and then they finally do get a little bit of reprieve. So when it gets to April, I think they get something like Sheffield, they get Luton back to back, and then I think it's Everton. Almost all three of them, I think, happen at the same time, and that is if Brentford can have most of their pieces together for that game by April, I think they'll get Mbeumo back as well. Uh, maybe Brentford will be able to skate by just by having that stretch. Another thing that might help them is the 2 games after those 2, and all 3 of those really will be must-win games. Basically, they'll be 6 pointers, essentially, and then it'll end with, I think it's Fulham and then Bournemouth. And frankly, you could find yourself in a situation where those 2 clubs don't really have anything to play for at that time in the table. We'll have to see. So that maybe could help Brentford out as well. It could certainly be a harder stretch to end with, but the flip side of that is until they get to April, it's not easy. They have a credit rough March ahead of them. So that's kind of speaking about Brentford, speaking about what's happening at the bottom of the table, and then kind of switching away from the EPL for a minute. I will get started with the Carabao final. With Liverpool and Chelsea, Virgil van Dijk wins it at the very, very end. It looks like maybe he had done this a little earlier when he had a header that was ruled out for kind of a weak offside call. The announcers were trying to explain it. I mean, maybe the letter of the law, it's right, but it's one of those things where a ref in real time just isn't going to see that, and VAR just kind of wanted to just rule out a goal just to kind of do it. Uh, I am saying that as a Liverpool fan, but I just thought, I mean, maybe Indo is he starts offside, but this is kind of what every team kind of does. I think Jeremy Carragher was making a similar comment, uh, and maybe he's trying to block Levitt Colwell, but I also think Levitt Colwell has kind of given up on the play. But anyways, it doesn't really matter because they are able to win it with him scoring a second header and really really scoring a third header in 2 games. Because I will touch a little bit what happened with the Luton game as well. And captain's performance. I think it was his first game. Being captain, being in a final as well. It's always been Jordan Henderson doing his little Henderson shuffle, and we got a different captain, or Liverpool had a different captain this game and let him. Captain, like I said, captain's performance, captain's sending off, and what a great way to I guess start this little farewell tour that the UK press is calling this, and I'll have some thoughts about that later on as well. This game was really the first one where that news really did kind of hit me. When you hear clap, and I'll speak about this later on, but when you hear that he is leaving, uh, uh, in January, to me, you take it in, and then the next couple of games or the next couple of weeks. you can kind of just put it in the back of your mind. You're like, oh, that's 6 months away. There's so much season left. This was the first time, I guess, because it was final, because you saw uh, the trophy being lifted, you saw his reactions. It really did kind of hit that this is going to be, his last hurrah. And next year it's going to be a different team potentially, and different, managed under someone new, and managed with different assistants as well. And you don't know what players are going to stay if if it's not Alonso, or even if Alonso, is he going to be able to play with a similar style that suits these players, and are they going to want to move or not? Because for the longest time, the selling point has been Klopp. It hasn't really been the rage structure. It hasn't necessarily been the Liverpool, the city. It really has been Klopp. So. I mean, there's a lot of change happening, but this was kind of a moment where you could, it was hard to ignore the change, but you could also kind of just soak in the moment as well. So that's kind of what I wanted to wanted to enjoy and take in, and before I can get started with that. Liverpool did have to beat Luton in the midweek, and did not get off to a great start, because Luton scored first with Ogbeni. I think there's a uh, Kelleher is forced into a shot. I think it comes from a throw-in, so it's not really the best defending. Kelleher has a shot, kind of spills it, and then Ogbeni's there on the back post, kind of beating Andy Robinson. Went into halftime 1-0, but it was kind of weird because Liverpool without Salah, Darwin, Trent, Szoboszlai, Jota, they were still creating chance after chance at a really high clip, and the way that they were constantly winning the ball back, applying pretty good pressure. The speed to advance the ball upfield, I mean, they weren't spending 30 passes sideways just to get the ball upfield. It did feel if they could get one back, they'd probably be okay. And that's basically what happened in the second half. There was an early corner kick that Virgil van Dijk is able to score on. Like I said, he's had quite a week of performances, just when it comes to actually helping them score a little bit. So he's gotten to do a little celebration the last couple of games, and then Cody Gakpo, after a McAllister assist. Just this is an unreal assist by McAllister. He just he volley assists, and it seems like it was done on purpose. And Gakpo just has to be brave enough to have your head right there, to hit a very hard hit ball coming right at your head, and he's able to direct it in. And then Luis Diaz, who I thought really did look back to his pre-injury days. I thought I mentioned it at Brentford. He's starting to look better. He's starting to trust his body again. He's taking players on again. He's taking risk again, and yeah, he was a madman in this game in a very good way. And I think he's been much better. He was fantastic in the Carabao final as well. And then the fourth one ends with Harvey Elliott kind of getting the topper. Robinson came on after I think Liverpool had the 3-1 lead to give I guess Joe Gomez some rest, and Robinson basically created two of the last goals with his pressing and creating turnovers. But that said, there is a pro and con to Robinson kind of doing that, and we saw that actually in this game, which I'll get to. And then with Chelsea coming into this, so there's a big chance to kind of win a trophy and backdoor qualify for Europe. Uh, Now it would be Conference League, and I know Chelsea fans don't necessarily probably would want to slag that off, but I'm starting to think it's actually pretty good to embrace this, as long as you don't have a squad that's built to challenge for a title, like a 90-point title now. If you're trying to build something, I actually think these lower tier European competitions give you an advantage in that respect, to actually uh, grow a bench, get your young kids in spirits. Chelsea have an insanely young squad, which is remarkable considering how much they've spent to build it. As far as age goes, these are still under 22-year-old players essentially, and they haven't they've only been under this manager 1 year, or less than a year. They haven't really had anyone. They haven't really been able to play a full squad this entire year, given all the injuries. So they could probably use an extra game week to just kind of try things. Uh, but online it didn't seem like Chelsea fans really cared about that. But also coming into this, just Pochettino himself had history with Jurgen Klopp. Pochettino lost the Champions League final when he took his Spurs team to the Champions League final at the I think it was at the Atletico Stadium in 2019. And that was not necessarily the best game, but that was the one that Liverpool were able to win. got started early with, I think, Mo Salah got a PK given to him, or I think it was Sadio Mane who actually drew the PK in the first minute of the game, and the Liverpool were able to get that and basically were able to see it out. I think it was a 1-0 game until the 80th minute, and then Divock Origi came on and he scored basically the game winner or the game clincher. And I'll always kind of remember that moment. But Pochettino in finals, just in general, hasn't necessarily been that great, and it took him till he went to PSG to actually win some silverware. He finally did win the title with Mbappe and PSG, but Pochettino just in finals hasn't always been that great, and Pochettino versus Klopp's history hasn't necessarily been that positive. But another thing coming into this is the way the season started. Chelsea last second kind of just sabotaging or stopping Liverpool from signing Moses Caicedo. And then, in the next day, signing Rami and Lavia as well is just kind of just a thing to do it, a thing to just kind of thump your chest about because they're the same kind of profile of a player, and it's kind of it's been weird in a sense that Roman Lavia has just been injured the entire season. Chelsea haven't even been able to play him. But it wasn't just that. They signed Ogre for a lot of money and Andre Santos on top of that, and they were all the same kind of player. Now maybe they recognized that they needed someone that was considered elite at that position, but even at that point, Moses Caicedo had only had one full senior season in at the Premier League level with Brighton, and he did it with Alexis McAllister next to him. So it was always kind of just weird how all of a sudden he was looked at as more expensive than Declan Rice, and maybe Chelsea have kind of struggled a little bit with that. But another thing too is these two teams, these two clubs have, and it also kind of worked out too that Liverpool ended up having to sign Endo as just kind of a last ditch replacement idea. And the reason why I say that is funny is he's turned out to be HM, and he dominated this game. There's going to be a lot of talk that Virgil van Dijk, maybe Kanate was man of the match. I kind of think it was Endo, given what he was able to do. Him and McAllister just dominated Chelsea's midfield by themselves, and their stats to back that up, which I'll get to later. But just another thing too is these two teams met each other in the finals in 2002. So both in the Carabao and the FA Cup, and both of them were 0-0 games. Both of them were a high drama, high entertaining 0-0 games, but both were 0-0 and went to PKs, and both went to Liverpool. So Chelsea have not really enjoyed going to Wembley. Facing Liverpool over recent times, and then another thing just coming into this, which is this is maybe just kind of me being a little bit too online, but it's just it feels like there's something with there's just an online rivalry between Chelsea fans and Liverpool fans. Chelsea when they had Thomas Tuchel was better than Klopp. That was a bit a part of the narrative. It's always been Reece James is better than Trent Alexander-Arnold. That's been another thing. Eden Hazard is better than Mo Salah as a Premier League kind of player. That's long been kind of a thing. So there's just been this growing thing. Coming into this, and Chelsea fans maybe were trying to shut their chest, coming into this because Liverpool really did come in limping here on one leg. Chelsea won the back of some pretty good, decent results for them as well. They beat Villa, they drew City in a pretty impressive kind of fashion. Now they were man versus Palace and man versus Wolves, and they a couple weeks ago they lost 4-1 to Liverpool. But that game was at Anfield, and Liverpool had Nunez that day. Chelsea didn't have Jackson, and Liverpool came into this without Nunez, Szoboszlai, who also scored in that 4-1 game. They came into this without Jota, who also scored in that 4-1 game. Well, without Salah and without Trent Alexander-Arnold, and it was entirely just this was not the Liverpool team that just you would have expected to line up to be in a final. So it started with Conor Bradley. Maybe that would make sense because Conor Bradley actually starred in the 4-1 game. And there was Kanate, Virgil, Robbo, Andy Robinson. And then it was Endo, McAllister, and Gravenberch, and then Elliott, Gakpo, and Diaz. And it really wasn't that big of a surprise because it was the same 11 that played pretty well versus Luton Town. But again, you just kind of look at that and you're like, that's not really their strongest 11. And then with Chelsea, they went with something that probably is. So I mean, there's going to be, I guess, debate over maybe Sterling, but I don't really know who else would fit. But they went with Gusto, Diazy, Colwell, and Chilwell. Now they're missing Thiago Silva. Maybe Thiago Silva would have played instead of Colwell or Diazy. Uh, I've spoken about that, how I think you can't really play in a high line with him. But Chelsea were not pressing in this game. Chelsea were actually soaking in pressure a lot, and maybe a Silva would have actually helped them. Because another thing too is Diassi, which I'll get to, was quite poor on the ball, and maybe a Thiago Silva would have been better. But Gusto and Chilwell on the wings for fullbacks, and then Casado, Enzo, and Gallagher. Gallagher had a pretty good game. Unfortunately for him, it wasn't a great game, which that was a bit of a theme that happened, especially in the second half. And then Cole Palmer, Jackson, and Sterling. There was a lot of talk coming into this as well. How were Chelsea going to line up that front three? Because it was Cole Palmer as kind of a false nine, played through the middle, and then it was Jackson that was tried on the left. And I can't remember if Sterling played. I guess it did. I guess Sterling played on the right when Chelsea came into this game at Anfield, or maybe Jackson didn't play. I think that was it. Jackson wasn't able to play, but and Jackson started up top and was so we didn't get the false nine, and frankly, Jackson was quite good, and Cole Palmer was quite good, and people have been slagging off Sterling, saying he didn't do anything. Sterling scored, and it was chalked off for a very very shaky offsides. I think people maybe forget about that, but you look at this lineup, and yeah, they have injuries. Nkuku hasn't been healthy and fit for them to go all season. He even came on in the second half and did not look fit at all. Apparently, Pochettino has even come out and said that he now is injured. But as far as midfield options, maybe Ukachukwu would have been an option to come on. Maybe Lavia, but they haven't had Lavia the entire season. That probably is what they would line up with. So Chelsea came into this relatively strong, with Liverpool not. But Liverpool did start off well. There's an early chance in the 12th minute. I think Diaz just have a shot blocked, but this game just kind of show that this explains how the game is going to go essentially. So Bradley makes him run upfield. Kanate picks him out, and then Bradley does really well to pick out Luis Diaz, streaking on the other side of the field. Diaz is basically Liverpool's main attacking outlet all game, and he was really good here. And then when it looks like Chelsea maybe have a break on themselves, Indo wins a 50-50 challenge, and Liverpool are actually able to get a second look at the goal with McAllister's shot. Uh, but Liverpool were doing well to control the game. It took a while for Chelsea to get going, but they got going here, and this was a big chance in the 20th minute. So Cole Palmer and Callum Kelleher, but it's also maybe Sterling, and this is maybe why people were going at Sterling, because Sterling could do better here as well. So McAllister plays a loose ball, trying to pick out Gakpo, and just hits it too far. Goes to Diazy, and Diazy quickly plays it to Cole Palmer. And again, this shouldn't really be a problem, but Andy Robinson thinks he can get to Palmer before Palmer can turn, and Robinson guesses wrong, and that's when the problem happens. So Palmer is able to quickly pass it to Casado. Casado then does the right thing and quickly does the first time ball into the space that Robinson has left, and he finds Conor Gallagher streaking down the wing. That draws Van Dijk to come out towards him, out wide, leaving the penalty box, and that forces Kanate to shift over to cover Nicholas Jackson instead. And Gallagher's cross goes behind Jackson to pick out Sterling. Sterling's able to get behind Connor Bradley, and Sterling, instead of trying to do this first time, he tries to take a touch, and it's not like Sterling had a lot of gap between him and Connor Bradley. It was just like maybe a yard a difference, and by Sterling taking that touch, that allowed Bradley to get back, and Bradley actually was able to stick out a leg that forces a deflection, and then the ball just ends up finding Cole Palmer just right there, and Callum Kelleher is massive. He's able to be big enough and able to get out of a glove to stop this from going in. Uh, and it really was a monster save and a fairly big chance wasted by Chelsea, and it wouldn't be the first one. And this is the kind of stuff that Allison has kind of been known to do. And man, Callum Keller was very good, and just Liverpool's backup keeper, and was frankly he won this tournament almost 2 years ago. And it's kind of a lot of people were expecting him to actually maybe leave the club by then, because it can't just be easy always being having to play underneath someone like Allison. But the flip side of that is Allison has his injuries here and there, and it is good to have somewhat of a decent backup, or I shouldn't even say that, a very good backup. But the problem is it's hard to for a backup to have some rhythm, and it's taken Kelleher some time. Like I said, in Europa games, he has not been necessarily his best. When he played in that Fulham game, I remember him making a bunch of mistakes, to be honest, and I came into this slightly worried, to be honest. And man, was he terrific. Kudos to him. And then basically, when it looked like Liverpool was somewhat controlling the game, they lose Ryan Gravenberch to basically Moses Caicedo stamping on him. And I've seen these given as a red. I get Caicedo's not even looking, and it's not intentional, but Rashford, I think, was sent off in the Champions League earlier doing something similar. And Billy Gilmore was sent off in this game, kind of doing, in the midweek, or in the on Saturday, doing something similar to versus Onana. And Gravenberch can't continue, and they did say he's messed up some ligaments. Might not be as bad as it feared. It could have been a leg breaker because Gravenberch his foot is planted on the ground. That's never really great. But so at least it's positive in that respect, and it really is a shame because he's actually someone that was fantastic versus Luton Town and was starting to actually relatively come into his own. Uh, Started to use his body a little bit. Was really physical and helping winning the ball back versus Luton Town, and I thought he was fantastic. To say that word again, versus Brentford when he had to come on for Curtis Jones, and you feel a little bit for the kid because he probably would have featured a lot. There were so many injuries in midfield. He was going to get a couple run of decent run of games under his belt, and then this happens. So just really unfortunate, but it also just for the team, it was unfortunate as well because it forced Liverpool to just completely rip up whatever they had planned up. They brought in Joe Gomez. Klopp didn't go to his kids. This early into the game, so they brought on Joe Gomez and basically moved Harvey Elliott back into midfield. Played Connor Bradley as basically Liverpool's right winger. Um, Bradley wasn't terrible, but at the same time, Liverpool's shape just was not. It was not the same, and it took a while for them to actually refine themselves a little again. And then Chelsea basically score in the 20th minute. It's offside. The apparently there was a camera view later on that showed it was quite clear cut, but the way the TV angle was, it was so terrible. I thought there was no way they're going to be able to deny this because it was not centered. And Robinson again makes a mistake. So he's trying to run up to Marta Gusto. Gusto then plays it to Enzo, and Enzo, first time, floats a pass to find Cole Palmer. And then Cole Palmer does really well to collect this here because uh, I think maybe that's the reason why Liverpool actually think they're okay. They don't think Palmer's going to be able to get to this, but he's able to stick out a leg and brings it down quite well. And then the next touch, he sees Jackson making a run into the space in between Van Dijk and Kanate, and basically they're near the halfway line. And Palmer's, there's a lot of Liverpool playing a high line. The space is in behind, and if you get the run right, you get the pass right, you can get in behind. And Chelsea do. Jackson makes a really good run, and then he picks out the square ball. So he makes the right decision, and Sterling's able to make it count. But it is chalked off for just the slightest hint of offsides. And again, it's the pros and cons of Robinson's game. Because you see the cons, but the pros were what happened versus Luton. When Robinson can gamble, you get those turnovers upfield, and basically you have a counter in your favor. Uh, but the con is it's moments like this. It nearly happened with the Callagher save on that chance as well. And frankly, this is where Liverpool lost the Champions League final versus Real Madrid a couple years ago when Robinson tried to basically gamble, and it's him and Thiago that tried to go for a ball and they miss. And that's when I think it's Valverde is able to get free. That forces Van Dijk to come out wide, and then basically it's a square ball that finds Vinny Jr. going back post that Alexander Arnold isn't able to read. It's just it's minor things, but in finals they're big, but it's not. It doesn't count. It's not. It doesn't go against them. So at least there's some of that. And then Liverpool started to get some chances as Gakpo, had off the post. And really a theme in the first half was how poor Chelsea's Diazy was on the ball. Lots of sloppy passes that were leading to giveaways, and this was probably the biggest error that maybe led to their biggest chance, Liverpool's biggest chance. So the ball eventually finds Robinson after Diaz and McAllister advance the ball into Chelsea's penalty area, and then Robinson gets him a great cross. So that's another part of Robinson's game that you stomach a little bit because he does have terrific delivery, and it is worth saying he's the second most assist leader when it comes to the Premier League for a defender, only beaten by Trent Alexander-Arnold. And Robinson had a couple really nice crosses into the box that nearly led to things. So here was Gakpo. He gets a good head on the ball, and it goes just a couple inches too far to the right. And then Liverpool had another chance with Bradley, and this was a pretty big chance as well. So Diaz again carrying the ball into the box. That was happening really the entire game, being threatening. And then he lays it off to Elliott, overlapping him, and Elliott has a square ball across the 6-yard area that's blocked off. But then he finds Diaz again, and Diaz, instead of trying to go for a shot himself, there are a lot of bodies in the way, so he lays it off to counter Bradley. And then Bradley does well to get the shot away, but it is kind of side-footed, and Chelsea do have the numbers to get that block. But another thing to say is there's a later Diaz shot that's also blocked right before halftime, but I do want to highlight this. So Chelsea have a bit of a bizarre shape. Connor Bradley and Jackson are trying to basically, no, Connor Gallagher and Nicholas Jackson are trying to basically marking Indo really tight, and it looks like almost like a 4-4-2. But everyone is sitting deep. The wide players, Sterling and Cole Palmer, are sitting really, really deep, and they're just allowing a lot of space for Van Dijk to basically have the ball, and he just carries it all up into that open space, advancing at 30 yards themselves. And by the time Virgil van Dijk gets into the final third area, that's when Chelsea's shape kind of changes a little bit, and it forces them to adjust. And then Van Dijk finds McAllister. McAllister quickly finds Diaz, and they basically get a shot out of this. But it's another example of just how important it is to have someone just good on the ball at all positions. And Van Dijk, as good for as his defending is, it's this quality that makes him stand out. As people are going to have already started the conversation that he's an all timer. If he is or not, I have certainly have my opinions on that. It would be this part of the game that he offers that just not many people have before him. Where the defending is one thing, but it's really the on the ball stuff. He is so good at, and he never really makes a mistake. He never really turns the ball over. He's got such good delivery on his long run ball passing as well. And he really is a Rolls Royce of a defender. And I'll get to it later. It is kind of fitting that it ends with him kind of having his little his like one cup final moment. Now I know he was, I think he was even man of the match in the Champions League final, but he hasn't. I was trying to think. He hasn't necessarily had a moment quite like this, and it was just again, it was all very fitting. So, but halftime thoughts were the Gravenberch injury was quite disruptive, and it took a while for the Liverpool to get going again, and it was really gutting because he had started to look uh, quite better. He didn't look like the player that was looked kind of lost a little bit versus Arsenal a few weeks ago. Now Arsenal are just flying themselves. Maybe that's just something that Arsenal do to players, but I was gutted for him. And then with Chelsea. Sterling and Cole Palmer and Jackson were making some positive runs, but and I did feel like the goal was offsides, but it was very weird how Pochettino did some pregame interviews, and he talked about how he wanted to press Liverpool really high and to basically keep the ball in their end, and they didn't do that at all. They were just sitting back and just looking to get stuff on the counter, and it nearly worked out. It nearly worked out in the second half. It did not work out in extra time. So that was kind of interesting. Uh, but before that, Liverpool do get the goal ruled out. So in the 55th minute, I think McAllister draws kind of a cheap free kick with Conor Gallagher. Gallagher's trying to stop him. McAllister just making a run past him and just kind of has the arm out foolishly. And then, a ball was sent in. I think it's Andy Robinson with the delivery again. And Endo is originally offsides. And I think it's a distraction technique, but it's also like a pick play. It's like a blocking pick play. And he runs straight into Colwell. Now, you can tell this is also on the replay. You could tell this was intentional because he's not even looking at the ball. Like Endo is just like zeroed in, like a missile, like on a locked target, essentially, and just runs immediately to Colwell to just kind of brush into him. And by that point, Colwell just kind of stops playing, and then Van Dijk just has to beat Ben Chilwell and makes kind of a mockery of Ben Chilwell, and yeah, he has no chance and scores. And it looked like a special goal for the new captain, wearing the armband for the first time in a final, and it's shocked off. And so there you have it. I think the note I had here was let's say it's 1-1 then, with Sterling's goal being canceled out as well, because whether or not it was the right call or not, it was close enough where in the past without VAR, maybe that's given. To be honest, because it was tight either way. So. And that's just kind of that's just the fine margins, to be honest. Now, sticking with that theme, back in 2002, it was either the FA Cup or it was the Carabao Cup as well, Carabao final, where it looked like Lukaku had gotten in behind and basically scored, and only for that to be chopped off for VAR. So without VAR, Chelsea maybe actually would have won one of those finals in 2002. But here after that, Chelsea basically really did come out strong. So there's a big chance for Enzo. Uh, and he makes a bad decision. I mean, Nicholas Jackson had a good game, and I guess because you never really want to praise the team that wins, and for some reason you always want to attack the team that loses. So Jackson's performance has kind of gotten, I think, lost, but he was good. In my opinion, and here, it's not easy to get runs past Kanate, and he was doing that. So here, he gets past Kanate, and I think he does a pretty good job to pick out the square ball, and he finds Enzo in the box, and Enzo has teammates for options, and he instead tries a weird back heel that just goes out of bounds. This was a massive chance that Chelsea should have done better with, and then Chelsea have a corner kick. I think Colwell wins the first header, and it falls to Diazy, and Diazy tries to knee it. This one isn't as clear cut. This is kind of a half chance. I mean, if Diazy gets any kind of contact at all, it's a for sure goal. But it is awkward, and he tries to knee it in, and it just kind of, he just kind of gets under it a little bit. But that was a big chance as well. And then Gakpo had a shot that went over the bar. Uh, the only way to kind of touch on this is, again, it's another great Diaz run. Basically, he runs for us four players, uh, and then and again, it seems like he has his belief again, because he wasn't doing this in the beginning of the season. He wasn't even doing this in the middle of the season, and everyone has to remember or keep in mind the context. During November, October, his family was kidnapped. Essentially, he was recovering from a very bad a knee injury, knee operation. He had a setback when he was trying to recover as well, and it just sometimes it takes more than just being able to play. It takes a couple months actually playing for you to for players to believe in themselves again. And I think we saw something similar with Pedro Neto of Wolves, where he was able to play last season, but he didn't look like the player he is this season. And I think maybe Diaz is starting to believe in his knee again, because man, is he taking some risk again, and he looks really good again. And he takes on four players, basically beating him 1v1. It's an awesome little dribble, and then the ball falls to Gakpo, and Gakpo just sails it over the net, unfortunately. And then the Conor Gallagher show begins. So first uh, we have Conor Gallagher striking the post, and this is a really good move, and it's not really Gallagher's fault. Just so here, in fact, Gallagher just kind of does what he's supposed to do. So Gusto gets the ball on the touchline. Malo Gusto had a really good game for Chelsea as well. Uh, then he runs towards the penalty box. Cole Palmer runs to the touchline, so it basically confuses Gusto. Gets on the touchline and then makes a run, and Cole Palmer does basically takes Gusto's place, and it confuses Liverpool a little bit here. And Caicedo does really well to just fake a pass to Gusto, so that kind of drew Liverpool to look at Gusto as well. And then Caicedo does really well to play it to Cole Palmer, and then Palmer is able to pick out Conor Gallagher, making a run into the box where Gallagher does everything right here. And yeah, he just he sticks the foot out. He's trying to get this first time, tries to get the first time flick, and he just gets too much of the post. But the other decisions, I won't be as kind. So here, there's another chance created by Cole Palmer. Liverpool are caught again. Cole Palmer gets on the ball and the touchline, sees Gallagher sprinting across from him, plays him the ball, and Gallagher is forced to come out. And Gallagher either has to lift this first time or go around him. and he tries to take a touch, and then he hits it glove height, where Gallagher is able to be big and save it. Now, at the same time, this could have easily ricocheted off Gallagher's glove and still gone in. Uh, but it was one of those things where you needed someone to have someone trying to beat the keeper, someone with the belief that they knew how to beat the keeper. Essentially, it's kind of hard to explain, but uh, someone. It feels like someone like if Nkuku's in that situation, maybe he tries to go around him. I can't necessarily say, though. We saw that last week versus Ederson, and he wasn't able to do that either. But anyways, it's a massive chance. It's more unlucky than necessarily Gallagher messing up. I guess I can say that. It's also a great save by Keller, because Keller was quick to come out and he gets the big block on it. But this was a big chance. And to be honest, a note I had here was I felt it was very similar, eerily similar to 2 years ago, where I keep going back to those two games. There was a moment when Mason Mount looked like he was in on goal and basically hit the post on a wide open net, and Pulisic I thought did something similar as well, and it felt like I was rewatching a little bit of that, which was kind of unnervy. And then it looks like Enzo had picked out Nicholas Jackson in behind, and Kanate on a yellow is somehow able to stop Jackson from getting to the goal. And I have no idea how this happened. I don't understand how he's able to catch up without fouling him. But Kanate then he's able. Jackson at least has a step or two in front of Kanate, and if he just you imagine if he just cuts across him, Kanate cannot get to him without fouling him. Somehow Kanate is able to catch up to him, and then when he gets into the box, he's able to stick a leg out and poke the ball off him before fouling him. But the ball still found Gallagher, and Gallagher had a shot, but the shot went high and wide. This was almost another moment as well, and frankly, mention how Endo was maybe player of the match. Uh, Virgil van Dijk, gets the goal, so I think he actually got rewarded with it, which is fair. Van Dijk was good as well. Kanate had some moments in the second half where he straight up stopped goals by himself, so he would have been worthy of getting some praise as well. So he stopped it here, and he did it later on with the second chance. So uh, Chelsea were ending the second half really well, and Liverpool look on fumes. And so Klopp decided to bring on a bunch of teenagers. So he took off Gakpo for Jaden Dance, and we saw Jaden Dance a little bit for the second half versus Luton Town, and he had actually had a pretty good moment to actually help out with that Harvey Elliott goal. McAllister for James McConnell, which I was like, "Ee, yeah, McAllister on fumes, you understand, but McConnell, someone that you don't imagine is going to be nearly as composed on the ball if Chelsea try to press him. But the thing is Chelsea weren't pressing, and that was a big moment of that. That was a big part of the equation as well. And then Bobby Clark came on, and he took off Connor Bradley, and this was actually a pretty good move. It didn't show up in full time because it didn't really show up in the second half. In extra time, it really did, because Connor Bradley is just not a right back, and Liverpool were struggling with that position. And moved Elliott back to right wing, and you finally had a third midfielder that understood how to play midfield in that position in Bobby Clark, and Bobby Clark was quite good. But both when he came on and especially in extra time as well. So was McConnell, and so was Dance. I mean, I'll get to the kids later. Uh, but before we get to that, there was a chance for Nkuku, and this is when the pinball happened, and somehow the ball just ends up finding Kelleher's arms. Cole Palmer again though was the threat, and he threads in a terrific ball into the box to Nkuku, and just Kanate dives and saves a goal, because I think Nkuku has a turn and is trying to do a shot. Kanate blocks it, and then Palmer has a follow-up shot. That's saved by Keller sticking a leg out, and then somehow Nkuku has another swing, and I think he just kind of flops a little bit on the shot. It's weak and just finds Keller's hands, and he's able to catch it. Let's see how we're doing for time, just in case. Okay, we're good. Uh, and then extra time happens, and I think given the way how this ended, how Liverpool's starting 11 was, or at least 11 at the moment was, it was like Virgil van Dijk, Kanate, and then like the U23 team. It made sense to figure Chelsea were favorites. I certainly did. That seemed to be what the announcers were saying as well. And then something also the way that Chelsea ended the game with, but something weird happened. Uh, Chelsea started sitting really, really deep, even deeper than what they were doing before, and they just allowed Liverpool's youngsters to get a lot of touches on the ball without any real pressure. And there's something about that. Liverpool are also able to get a couple crosses off, get a shot or two blocked, and they were able to get a couple corner kicks early in the game as well. And I think in like the second minute, Tsimikas or Diaz has a cross into the 6-yard area. It might even be it might even be Harvey Elliott. And basically he finds they're able to pick out Jaden Dan's, only for Colwell to be able to just get there very, very at the last minute. Colwell saves a goal here as well. Dan's almost has a tap in. Uh, so you had that moment there, and then there was a real chance with Virgil van Dijk winning a header, squaring the ball into the box that youngster Jaden Dan's actually did win, and forced a pretty good save from Petrovic. And Petrovic had a pretty good game as well. I think he had 10 saves in the game, and just there was something happening in the first 5 minutes where all of a sudden the feeling both in the commentators, but also at the actual like ground changed where Liverpool fans started to really believe that something was afoot here. Uh, and it was because of the like the early start they had, and just Chelsea by sitting back, allowing Liverpool to kind of grow into the game, get some touches where you're coming in, you're 18, 19, you maybe don't have much minutes of senior football, but at the same time, it's everyone can say it's different because 100,000 fans or whatever, Wembley and all that. But at the same time, if you have tunnel vision, at the same you're just kicking a ball with your cleats essentially, and maybe allowing them to grow into the game by just that, not having any pressure on themselves. They were able to kind of go in maybe with that mindset. Maybe Klopp was able to kind of instill a little of that belief in themselves, and they played like it. They played like they belonged, and the fans rewarded it. They started singing "Ale Ale Ale," a chant that Liverpool fans like singing, and like the whole stadium was singing it. It came across really loud on TV, and just all of a sudden it started to change. Every kind of like bad feeling, negative feeling that was going in into extra time flipped, where it was like you can't lose now, and maybe Liverpool will even be the favorites. And then it started to be the Harvey Elliott show. So there's a first chance for Elliott. I think Diaz gets a ball from Tsimikas, posting in the penalty area, floats a terrific ball to pick out Elliott, kind of snucking it to the back post, and he maybe doesn't get the contact he wants, but he can only ripple like the side of the net. But a big chance here, and then there's a second chance where there's a long switch by Virgil van Dijk to pick out Joe Gomez. So again. It's another example of just how good Virgil van Dijk can be at being able to stretch the pitch and being able to, yeah, stretch the pitch would be a good way to put it, but also be able to just kind of advance the ball, to teammates. And it's a long switch to Gomez, and then Elliott gets on the ball, switches the play himself, has a little cross across the box. Bobby Clark then collects it and then passes it back to Tsimikas, who plays the ball toward, I think, the back post. It's a good cross by Tsimikas here, right, who sends come on for Andy Robinson. And Elliott again is there at the back post, and he tries to beat Petrovic from a tight angle with his header. He does well though. He hits like he nicks like the inside of the near post, and there's a loose ball, basically, 3 feet from goal, essentially. And Dan's is trying as hard as he can to get his foot on the ball, but Diazy actually does really well to block it. And Diazy did not have his best game. It is worth saying that, but he was big here. He saved a goal here. And then the magic happens in the 127th minute. So first, Dan's does really well to kind of drop for the ball, and he picks out a great pass to get it upfield. Samikas is making a run here, and then the ball eventually finds Bobby Clark, who tries to send it across, and it's deflected out of bounds for a corner kick. But it was so weird because again, by Chelsea just sitting deep and allowing this to happen, Liverpool were able to actually, be brave, and they had the fullbacks in their attack. Tsimikas is getting a lot of crosses in that second half, and Joe Gomez was getting upfield as well. And it felt like, even with Mudryk on, there was no kind of belief that Kanate and Van Dijk would not be able to handle Chelsea being able to counter on them without Jackson being on. And that's another thing too. Pochettino, took off Nicholas Jackson, took off Sterling. Um, and Mudryk does have some pace to him, but they weren't really able to necessarily use it. They brought in Nkuku, and Nkuku didn't feel like he was able to really offer much either. And it was just very strange to see them just fully play for the counter and not try to win the ball back themselves. And another thing too is no, Liverpool's kids were quite composed themselves. They weren't just giving the ball away. They were making some pretty good passes and doing quite good to actually try to press and win the ball back themselves and doing well in some duels. So it was I couldn't really believe what I was watching, to be honest, to see, academy kids playing that well, but they were, and a lot of people are gonna, go at Chelsea a little bit, and I probably will as well, but, it's worth just kind of, praising that because that's not something you see a lot. That's not something you see often at all, and, I think it's just kind of a that was just kind of a special moment as well, but, we get to the goal and, it's a corner kick caused by, Bobby Clark kinda taking a chance as well. He could have, easily gone backwards. He could have tried to pass sideways, not try to be the hero. If he hits a cross and he goes out of bounds, everyone's just yelling at him, 'cause he's given away possession. But he tries a cross, or maybe it's even a shot, and it's blocked, and it goes out for a corner kick, and then the ball's whipped in, and this time there's no screen, there's no offsides, and Van Dijk just basically runs to the near post, and, they had Mudryk. I think Chelsea are trying to do, zonal marking is what they call it, so the marking is zone, and they have Mudryk and Van Dijk just, that's not really a contest. Maybe it works, but I was amazed they didn't have both Diazy and Colwell basically on Van Dijk, especially because he just beat you, early before. Maybe if Jaden Dance, beats you, you maybe, you hang your head on your shoulder. Maybe I mean, you have to mark Konate as well, so maybe Diazy was marking Konate, but, I thought that was kind of, first it was Chilwell on Van Dijk, Liverpool were able to get that with the pick, uh, but Chelsea had the warning shot, and they weren't able to adjust, and then, Van Dijk basically does get the moment that we thought we had earlier in the game, and he's able to get the game-winning goal that wins it. And another thing too is there was still 3 minutes to go in the game, and Chelsea had a cross or shot, and, Van Dijk, had to actually head this ball down, and, there was fears that maybe it even hit his arm, but, he was still able to compose himself and still see out the game, and so, there's still a lot of thoughts on this. I mean, the takeaway that, Neville said was, Klopp's Academy Reds beats Chelsea billionaire stars, or, Neville said something where, billionaire bottle jobs. But I think what's very interesting here is Cole Palmer, Malagusto, Madueke is another one that came on, Mudryk, Colwell, Chalobah. I think are all under 21 or 22 as well. Some of them are teenagers as well. I think Cole Palmer and Madueke are like 19. Colwell, I think, is under 21. So it's not just age. It's like, I mean, they're senior level players with senior level experience. And Dan's is just getting his second senior cap. And McConnell, Clark probably have 30 minutes of senior football between the two of them. But it's just that's what's kind of wild here is the age difference isn't that different, and yet Chelsea have spent $1 billion to make up this team, which is I think that says a little bit more about Chelsea than anything else. But the other thing is it's fitting. It's fitting that Van Dijk gets the deciding goal. Did the same versus Luton Town. Uh, and not to get like overly emotional or narrative building, but he is the signing that made Liverpool from a fun, interesting side to a legit world beater. And it happened overnight when he joined. Everyone's gonna, Firmino is like the stereotypical or the there's been a lot of debate on who is Klopp's most important signing. People will point at Allison as well. Fair point, because Allison it basically helped them go from losing, or they went from Kelleher, not Kelleher, they went from Karius to losing the Champions League final to Real Madrid versus signing Allison and winning it the next year. But eh, it really is to me Van Dyke, and I think nothing else. If nothing else, this stat is one of the more remarkable things. It's almost like fake. It is that remarkable uh, that Liverpool and Liverpool had a lot of losses at Anfield, but it was also during COVID. But it was also when Van Dijk was out and not playing. Virgil van Dijk has only lost one time in the EPL at Anfield when he started. You think about all the games that he's played before, it's Leeds, and before it was Leeds. The funniest thing in the world to say would be that question, and the answer: who was the last team to beat Virgil van Dijk at Anfield? And the answer was Liverpool because it happened when he was a Southampton player. And yeah, it's just, he's been there for like 5 or 6 years, now. That is truly, truly insane, and just kind of, that is him. And, there's been a lot of talks about, over the last couple of days on legacies, and, he's still playing, and he's also recovered. He's had to recover from his ACL, tearing his ACL, and that's another thing too. I think it's taken a while for him to actually recover a little bit, and I'll be honest, I don't think he's the same player that he was, before that, and it helps that he does have someone like a Kanate, by his side. It helps that, he has Allison to sometimes, make those 1v1 saves. In this case, it was Kelleher that was quite big as well. But, it is a team kind of effort, but, it is just kind of fitting that he finally gets his moment, here, and maybe we'll see if he gets other moments. But, captaining the team, captain's armband, and, he's the one that lifts the trophy, and, they lift it because of him. So, um, and the other kind of thing to say was Chelsea gonna rue all those missed opportunities before extra time. I think the general sense was, they would be favorites. Uh, but I think the thing, that's also interesting is, Chelsea, the way the Pochettino kind of set up is he almost seemed like he was scared. He was scared not to lose it, and Klopp, went for Klopp brought on kids, and a lot of people, like online, the jest was, "Oh, here's the narrative. If Chelsea win, it's because they beat, Klopp's kids." But, Klopp actually gave some comments after that, and it was done on purpose. With kids, you have youthful energy, youthful legs. So he went with that over experience. He gambled, and, Pochettino and his guys tried to play for PKs, essentially, and, and there you go. And again, just, something about this really did feel good because it was also versus Chelsea, and I mentioned how they've been, what happened over the summertime did kind of irk me a little bit. Their fans also wanted to, say, "Hey, why aren't you talking about us for maybe Champions League or some kind of title push when, we won the U.S. Summer Series tour?" That was kind of a thing as well, and injuries have set them back. They haven't had the team that was helping them, during the, Summer Series tour. They lost Reece James after, like, the first, like, 2 or 3 weeks into the season. No Nkunku as well, never had Lavia. So, there was, some of that as well. So, the key stats, 19 and 9. So Chelsea had 19 shots and 9 on target. Liverpool 24 and 11. 5 big chances for Chelsea. Possession, Liverpool with 54%, but they had 60% in extra time with their kids. 468 passes, 80%, 579. That, being under 500 passes for, playing 120 minutes is not ideal, in my opinion. And then, 579 passes, 84% accuracy. So, the kind of, general thoughts. Maybe I'll just kind of just do a Carabelle episode. I'll do something else later on because I do want to just kind of, touch a little bit on this, and then maybe, uh, what I'll do is, maybe edit down what I was going to say about Arsenal, City, and what happened in the rest of the league. Because really, I do want to spend a lot of time talking about Liverpool and basically this team or this game. So, getting starting with them. I think my general kind of takeaway, in here, and I think I alluded to it a little bit before, is Klopp, gets another trophy to add to his list of achievements. And it's dumb to say, but it's like it is the first time where, like, Klopp leaving, that news of him leaving, struck and hit home. And again, it's just kind of this realization that, next season is gonna be different. And there was a moment when, the crowd was singing, "You'll Never Walk Alone," and, basically, they kind of repeated it a little bit. They did a little rendition, and it felt like almost like the 3rd time, it was like a message to Klopp himself that he won't be alone. So I thought that was kind of, teary-eyed, meaningful, and, again, who knows what will happen the rest of the season. Injuries are really starting to pile up, and, I just think at least they have something in the bank, where no matter what, Liverpool will have won something in the final season, and, to kind of stick in on that and to win it with kids, to win it with an academy and youth program that he's helped kind of build up. He's seen up. He's seen these kids come up as he's been there. He's been there for 8 years, and I think that was kind of special. I think you saw that in his face as well, and to win it with these kids and that manner, I think was important. So you see one era ending and maybe another era beginning, and uh, it's also fitting too because with a different manager, maybe Trent doesn't get his shot to perform when he's 17 years old in the first team. Klopp well, believed in him. He didn't really care about the age. He just he just values talent. Curtis Jones, similarly enough, Connor Bradley, Joel Kwanzaa. And before it was Ben Doak, and last year it was Stefan Bajicic. And in this game, it was Bobby Clark, it was James McConnell, it was Jaden Dance, and he's had to rely a little bit on youthful legs because the squad depth hasn't always been terrific. It is worth saying that, and there are so many games now in a season, you almost have to spread the minutes around somehow. And again, Klopp brought up a quote where he heard before or he mentioned after the game that you can't win finals with youth. And I think maybe the new saying, the new kind of the new way to edit that is you can't win cup finals or you can't advance in a little bit of a tournament in a domestic cup competition without a proper youth setup. In many cases, teams play their second or third teams in the early rounds of these domestic cup competitions, anyways. Uh, and then because Europe or a league form takes first priority. So with youth comes youthful legs, but also with youth, there's no reason to fear what you haven't done before. And I do think that's another thing too. The kids were brave in their play. They still took appropriate risk on the ball, but they weren't like they weren't going gung ho. But they were still taking some risk, and that's another thing too. You can't play in a shell and just invite pressure onto you. So that's another thing that they were able to do as well. And then another note is Europa League has not been as bad as I was kind of fearing. Um, I'm going to knock on wood a little bit because uh, that could still bite back because now the knockout rounds are happening and this coming up there's a Europa League game on Thursday and then that Sunday they play Man City. So who are you able to even feature in that game? But at least in the group stage, players like Kwanzaa, Ryan Gravenberch, Indo, Bobby Clark, Connor Bradley, they all got to dip their toes into senior football without Premier League. And I think it has been a bit of a bonus and blessing. Before it was Ben Doak, before he got injured, and I think it's given these bench players to get some real game minutes in a competitive atmosphere outside the league. So I think these kind of Europe competitions should be embraced. It sucks not being in Champions League, but at the same time, if Liverpool were in Champions League, I think Mo Salah is playing every single week. Not Harvey Elliott isn't getting game time. I don't think Endo's getting able to, in the beginning would have been able to play. It would have been McAllister every single game week, and I think that would have actually killed the legs in the star players as well. So I think there are two ways to kind of look at that. Gakpo actually, got started scoring a lot when Nunez wasn't playing, and I think Gakpo has benefited from those Europa League minutes. So there is a lot of ways to kind of look at this, but sticking on the game. Uh, so two things. Liverpool seemed to target Diazy, which is not necessarily great for him. I thought they made him really uncomfortable, and I thought another thing too is it felt like they high pressed, where it felt like there was always someone running at the goalkeeper. Always someone never giving Chelsea time, and I thought Chelsea struggled to play through that pressure as the game went on. And in the second half, it felt like anytime Chelsea did try to play some long balls, with their keeper or with the center backs, Van Dijk was winning every single 50-50 ball. And not only winning it, was finding teammates with his headers and allowing Liverpool to just kind of regain, not just regain possession, but retain it. Um, and another thing too is you didn't necessarily see it in this game, but versus Luton Town, Gakpo is starting to learn how to play as a nine, leading the line, not just a false nine where he's just dropping into midfield. He's actually starting to be up ahead in the box when Liverpool have the ball. So that's positive as well. We actually saw it a little bit in this game when Robinson had that cross that Gakpo was in the box. He wasn't behind the play, which has often been a problem. And Bobby Clark coming on that moved Elliott back to right wing, and that kind of changed things as well. And then just the closing down and energy to run upfield, track back, and the ability to build up play, regardless of who they're up against. Teams. I think that's kind of remarkable as well. Teams don't necessarily try pressing them anymore. Maybe Chelsea just thought pressing them would be a disaster because you have to play a high line, and maybe they didn't feel they felt like Liverpool would be able to play through them. The only team that's really given them fits has been Arsenal, to be honest. And and Van Dijk makes such good decisions on the ball. You can't really press him into mistakes. I think Robinson is good, underrated a little bit at that as well. Endo and McAllister are always outlets to pass to when Kelleher has the ball, and that hasn't always been the case. Where it used to be when Thiago was missing games, Liverpool did not have a midfielder in that situation to collect the ball under pressure, turn, find teammates, and advance the ball. It would be Henderson or Milner who would be having a bad touch. They'd be slow to turn, and if anything, they'd be going sideways or backwards. Liverpool now have some outlets that can press the ball a little bit better, and it's one thing to be in possession that they're good at. Endo and McAllister are significantly better out of possession than I ever would have dreamed of. Endo, and they just lucked into getting Endo. He was 11 of 17 ground duels, so he challenged himself 17 times. McAllister was 10 of 14 for his ground duels. And Harvey Elliott showed a bit of an engine room in this game. Luis Diaz is starting to really take on some players where it felt like he was hesitant, and I think he believes in his body again. And then second, another note on the kids, the technique they showcase, not just their energy. Every kid that came on showed pretty good ball retention, and Chelsea were trying to apply some token pressure. It wasn't full out. There would be maybe someone 6 yards away, just kind of someone in the presence, and none of them really lost the ball in bad areas. None of them were like afraid of Moses Caicedo being in the presence. You actually saw McConnell even push off Moses Caicedo on the ball. Um, and I just think it's remarkable too because last year it was Henderson and James Milner being forced to do this last year, and the kids that came on were better than James Milner and Henderson last year. Bobby Clark, quick feet, showed an engine room as well. I thought he was doing well to get his body in between the ball to win it back. I thought he was making good passing decisions. It tracked back. He did some good defensive work as well. Thought he showed some pretty good pace. And McConnell came on, and I think he actually ended up with the most touches in extra time. The composure on the ball, not really losing it. It wasn't always, and it's not easy to collect passes, hit to you when it's at the knee height. I thought he was doing really well with that. He was showing he almost had like the ball was sticking like a glove, and he had there was one moment in particular in extra time when he had a turn. Kelleher was trying to pass him the ball, and he has a turn that basically fools Caicedo and Enzo going the wrong way. And because he does that, because they don't think he's basically going to almost like a dummy turn essentially. They think he's just going to collect it and then kind of pass sideways or run sideways, and he kind of does a dummy turn, and by getting Caicedo and Enzo to just run away from him, he looks up and he has all the space to kind of carry the ball himself, and he carries it like 30 yards, and it just comes from one pass from Kelleher to him, and that little turn created some space for himself. Opened up the entire pitch basically, and he was able to carry it all the way upfield, and then I think Liverpool even got an attack out of this. Just two passes. Liverpool were able to kind of break through Chelsea, so that was kind of big too. And we'll probably see McAllister, I think, for Southampton. Uh, and another thing too is he recognized when to take the tactical foul. There was one time when it looked like there was maybe a chance for Chelsea to get a counter break on, and McConnell just straight took him down. And I think the announcers even said, in future time, this will be what a blue card is, and you see why maybe people could embrace it because it is absolutely cynical and it's stopping a goal scoring opportunity almost. Now you can't say it's a red card because it happened in the Chelsea end. It's not even near the halfway line, but it's very cynically done. And good for him because that was a big moment as well. Just kind of eat a yellow, kill any kind of momentum, allow Liverpool to get their shape back, and go again. And just Liverpool's midfield to end that game was Bobby Clark, James McConnell, and then an Endo that was playing through pain. And Chelsea had a World Cup winner in Enzo Fernandez. They had Moses Caicedo that everyone wanted last season. Moses Caicedo had a performance at the Emirates last season that had everyone just drooling over him. Uh, and just Liverpool bossed them in the second half. And Jaden Dance was hungry, not shy, and showed some pretty good link-up play, and had some nice runs as well. Showed some pretty good physical presence as well. Forced Colwell and Diaze to be on their toes. And I thought he helped actually with the fourth goal versus Luton Town. We'll probably see Jaden Dans versus Southampton as well. And then it's funny too because Connor Bradley and Harvey Elliott are not even 21 years old. Bradley is 19, so he's a kid too, still. And he almost feels like a senior player now. And then Harvey Elliott just 20. And you don't even he's not much older than the other kid. So Liverpool's academy is or I guess their young setup is at least it's good enough to do a job now. We'll see. It's different to be able to go off adrenaline as well. It's not easy. The part of being a professional is not just being able to ride the highs. It's that consistency. It's when you have expectations. How do you handle yourself? How do you when you've had some early success? Are you able to contain yourself? Do you buy into your own hype? Are you able to sleep okay? Are you able to still train? Things like that. Is your body able to handle additional game load, additional physicalness? That's another thing as well. So we'll have to see how these kids handle it. But they're probably going to get a chance, quickly with Southampton because Liverpool do not have a senior 11 that can feature in the FA game. So, and then so that's enough about them. And another note about Virgil and Kanate, and because both fullbacks were leaving these two on an island at the back, and both still managed to make great recoveries. And they did get help with Kelleher and Barr, but still. And then speaking of Kelleher, just what more can you say about him? Brave 1v1 stuff, stuff that Allison does, which is the best compliment you can give to a keeper, at least a Liverpool keeper. And I thought his distribution actually was quite good as well. He wasn't just booting the ball away; he was brave and trying to pick out some teammates. So that helped out. The only kind of negative here is Curtis Jones was in a boot for the game. Gravenberch had to end the game in a boot. It looks like Endo left the game in a boot. Still no Thiago and Bajcetic. I think Klopp actually said Bajcetic is close to being back, and that's another thing too. Bajcetic is just as young as those players, so that will help a little bit with the legs. The game is different now. It's if all these young players it seems have that technical side that maybe in the past that wasn't available, and the game is so kind of physical. You need to be able to just run a lot, essentially, and youthful legs help with that. It's all about winning duels. So being in physical contest and being able to make a lot of recovery ground. So having a lot of youthful legs helps out in that respect. But at least when it comes to like having a team that's reliant on an injury room, it's not really great if you're just always sitting back. Uh, but that's basically the way Klopp's always seen the game. So it helps that he finally has a team that's almost in his perfect image. And unfortunately, it's happened at a moment when he's about to leave. I'm trying to think back. It was only last year when he was asking James Milner and Jordan Henderson to do this kind of job, and they just could not do it. So or Fabinho for that matter was not able to cover the kind of distance that these players can. And that's just kind of the midfield. I mean, the midfield's kind of getting destroyed. There's still no Trent Alexander-Arnold as well. Liverpool had to go into this with that third string right back, essentially, and Gomez did a decent enough defensively. I thought maybe on the ball he was a little poor. He almost had a chance to actually win it as well. That would have been quite interesting. I mentioned how it was fitting Van Dijk won it. There was a moment when Liverpool had the overlap. They played him the ball, and I think he's trying to do a cross across the goal, get the shot across the goal, and he just basically hits it right at Petrovic. That was a moment as well. But Liverpool went into this with their third string right back as well, and so they showed up some pretty impressive depth and some real gutsy performances. And again, just there's a game on Wednesday, and just who are they able to even put out there? No Salah, no Nunez, no Slobosly, Jota till uh, April at the best. Luis Diaz looked absolutely winded as well. I can't imagine he's able to go. The front three honestly might be Trey Nyoni, who is 16 years old, Jaden Dans, and maybe we see Cade Gordon, who is also quite young. as well. This would have been a perfect game to have someone like Ben Doak. Ben Doak's only 17 years old. Uh, there's just not a whole lot of people that you can roll out there. Maybe Gakpo, since he came off, maybe he'll have some legs to kind of help out. But it's going to be rough. And Southampton, I think, have been on a pretty good run in the championship, but they also have a chance to win promotion in the championship. Are they going to rest? Or are they going to risk a lot of players as well? Championship is brutal on the legs as well. So are they going to be able to? Are they going to try to rotate the squad? We'll have to see. I mean, you look at the draw and you think drawing a championship side is a positive. It's a way to advance in the FA Cup. Maybe that's not the case because it's not really coming at the best time. But we'll have to see. And then just kind of to end off, given the injury situation, winning this one was important, and because you don't, league form, Europa could come crashing down. There could be some bad injuries in Europa as well. That's what happened to last year with Arsenal with Saliba. I think it was a Porto game that he actually got hurt, not an EPL game, and it's good to just have this in the bank. They've won something in his final year. They got those trophy picks, banked in. And, another people don't really rate this. Online, they're calling it the energy drink cup. But another thing too is, Pep has long talked about how winning this thing has helped given his team like a boost to go on and chase further titles. Chase Champions League, chase motivate to end the season well to win those Premier League titles. So, I mean, trophy is a trophy, and winning isn't everything, but it was nice to at least for them to experience at least that, and we'll see if they can carry on more. In 2002, that's what they were able to do. They were able to actually use this as motivation, use this as something to a way to believe that more was possible. And it's always good for team camaraderie as well. And they were very close to doing something really special in 2002 with winning the FA Cup as well, and then barely missed out on the Premier League, as everyone remembers, and then just barely missed out in the Champions League final. And so there's still a time for some more memories to happen, and we'll have to see. Um, and then we'll see how they're able to respond. With how knackered the body really is with Southampton, and then it's Nottingham Forest, and Nottingham Forest are fighting for their lives, and it's away to Nottingham Forest, which is not going to be fun next Saturday. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how they're able to respond with that as well. But at least for now, we can enjoy the moment, and then I think after the Nottingham Forest, there's a Europa game, and then I think it's like Sparta or Prague, and then it's Man City at Anfield. And so the real question is, will you be able to have Mo Salah, Dominic Szoboszlai, Nunez, at least available for the Man City game? Will that needs to be kind of maybe the benchmark is something to really look at. But we'll have to see. And then with Chelsea, uh, people went after Pochettino after the final whistle, and I think you can criticize some of the decisions he made in extra time. For the way the actual game went. I guess you could say maybe the tactics weren't necessarily wrong. They did create 5 chances. Callagher was forced into some pretty big saves. All it takes is for just one of those to go in, and the story and script is entirely flipped. Pochettino, you just kind of think about that. If one of those goes in instead, everyone is liberal head kids. Maybe Klopp made a mistake not going for it. Maybe people are actually going at Klopp a little bit, and instead people are writing the story of Pochettino has been able to galvanize Chelsea. This would be on the back of them getting that draw versus Man City, looking quite good. This would be on the back of beating Aston Villa. Maybe Pochettino has turned Chelsea around. Maybe Chelsea are coming back. That would have been maybe the Todd Bowley project is something to believe in. There would have been a lot of stories about that. Just if one little shot had gone differently. So I think it's okay to kind of calm down a little bit here. I mean, in extra time, it definitely isn't great that he was just sitting back and allowing Liverpool to have 60% of the ball. It does feel like that was on purpose. Um, and they were not good. They were not good in extra time, but it is what it is. Extra time is just kind of a wash. Uh, maybe if this goes to PK is what's everyone saying as well. And it nearly did. So, uh, but the one thing to maybe say is he did do something similar versus Man City, where he took off a lot of his players that were in the front line to bring on defensive players, and it was very defensive minded. It was very let's not concede. And I think it backfired versus Man City, and it kind of backfired here. So, because the more you sit back, the more you allow just a cross to come in, and it's a deflection, and now you have to defend a corner kick. Very, very late in the game where Liverpool can, have their towers into the box, and Kanate and Virgil van Dijk are not easy to defend. So I think there's some of that. I mean, players got into good enough positions to put this away before extra time. So I think it's worth kind of remembering that. But, I mean, as far as, Chelsea's tactics, the way they used Cole Palmer was different. I thought he was pretty good actually in the second half, and maybe the only mistake was not necessarily getting him the ball in the first half, and sometimes that can be a problem when you're playing him on the right side, and that is kind of the issue going forward is I don't really know how you can play maybe in Nkunku and him at the same time, and Nkunku seems to be a player that is kind of a ball to feet kind of player as well. And you get two creative, almost like tens there. I thought Nkuku actually used to have a lot of pace. Used to try to make some runs in behind, and maybe he was before his injury, but at least the last few times that he's been out there, he's been kind of dropping and coming to the ball too. Cole Palmer is not someone that wants to make a run in behind. He wants the ball played to his feet. He wants to be able to turn. And the question is will can he learn to actually kind of be almost like a midfield kind of aide to do more running maybe without the ball. Um, we'll have to see because another thing too is Chelsea can only play a certain kind of formation uh, with someone like Palmer in the team. You can almost only play a 4-2-3-1 where you're even in this case you're trying to play him on the right side, but he's really cutting in. That's allowing Gusto to have the wing a little bit to himself. But it's just, he's not it doesn't feel like he's as influential as to me he should be. But another thing too is you can't really play him in the middle, because Conor Gallagher has way more of an engine, and that's another thing too. Gallagher was good, and it's unfortunate for him that, none of those hits, were able to go in because that would have been a bit of a storyline as well, where, everyone would have been praising him. He's been basically their player of the season. Everyone's been talking about, Cole Palmer. Gallagher has been, at least when it comes to, at least when you hear Pochettino talk about him, it feels, he's been maybe their at least their best midfielder, of the season. I guess you can say that with Enzo and Caicedo, in between, because, he's the one that's been providing, all that energy, for them, playing in deeper at moments, but also, showing what he can do when he's been played a little bit further ahead. And, it is unfortunate that, at least for his sake, that some of those moments didn't go in because there's been a lot of talk, as well that he's going to be the first one that actually is forced to move on because Chelsea have a lot of financial issues, apparently, where their books are kind of tight. So they need because he's an academy product. If you sell him, it's pure profit. And there were a lot of talks back in January that they were looking to offload him to maybe to Tottenham. So that is unfortunate for him because it seems like he really does, appreciate, the club that's taken him in. He had his moment to leave and on loan to do a job with Crystal Palace, but when he scored for Crystal Palace, he didn't care about thanking them. He wanted to celebrate with the Chelsea fans. So that's kind of, something to say with as well, and, I think the kind of the problem is, the way they ended was not who as strong as what they began with, and, legs were shot. Jackson can't go the whole game. Sterling, yeah, is kind of getting up there. So there's some of that as well. I mean, positives, there were some positives. The keeper I thought was solid for them, taking players on, doing well to run past people. Oh wait, no, the keeper was solid for them. Sorry, Petrovic. I think he had to make 9 or 10 saves. Which actually I thought he was somewhat strong in the penalty box. Coming out. It's just, it's unfortunate for him that just, Chelsea weren't able to actually, mark, Van Dijk. I thought Colwell was good as well. He was good on the ball, unlike Diazy. Maybe actually Petrovic wasn't necessarily as great on the ball. And Liverpool were able to press him and to, kick it out of bounds a few times, but at least, he's someone to build something with. And it seems Sanchez is healthy and available, and Petrovic is still kind of getting all these starts. So maybe they believe in something, believe in him as well. Uh, Levy Colwell had a number of really big blocks. Otherwise, Jayden Danns is actually scoring and being the hero. Malo Gusto is strong on the ball and showed some pretty good quick feet. I played he played on both wings actually. He switched over in the second half. Didn't do his best job defending Luis Diaz, but at the same time, he wasn't bad. He was positive. That's something to be positive about. Cole Palmer and Caicedo. I mean, Cole Palmer and Conor Gallagher as well. Just you had the moments, and then uh, Caicedo and Enzo, both had their moments as well. But that's the thing with them is they have moments of brilliance and moments of going missing, both of them. And, in key moments in the game, they both went missing. And I also think Caicedo's actually playing through an injury. Last 3 games, I've seen him stopping and grabbing his knee. I don't know if he's doing it for camera, work or not, but I think he's got a knee issue. Um, I mean, Alexei, Diazy was rough on the ball. Liverpool targeted him, and, again, maybe this is a case where Thiago Silva would have been better, yeah, if Thiago can play on the right side instead of the left, 'cause I like Colwell. Uh but Thiago Silva probably makes better decisions on the ball. Maybe Liverpool aren't able to press him. Maybe they're able to having a center back that's good on the ball is everything. A keeper as well, but it's something you don't really think about. But you're able to if a center back isn't going to necessarily make a mistake, and not only that, is able to manipulate how you set up. And you can just kind of unlock teams just almost honestly by that, by having a center back that's good at reading the game and be able to make some passes. When you're able to press them to where they're not freaking out, they're able to handle it. Thiago Silva is quite good at that. To be fair to him, now you can run it behind him with a grandma essentially. But the problem is the thing about that is Chelsea were not playing a deep high line in this game at all. So I don't necessarily know if that would have necessarily, factored in, either. So that was a bit of a surprise. And the final thing to talk about is it is striking this team is so young, given what they've spent. Because another thing too is Chelsea had an opportunity to kind of do this, do what Liverpool's done. So Liverpool won this cup because of trusting their youth players, and Chelsea had this back in 2021. And they've since then decided to, like, sell all of them, to basically bring in all these superstars that, have all this potential that are also kind of at the similar age. I mean, they've given away Ian Maatsen to Dortmund, before it was Burnley on a couple loans, given away Livramento, Lewis Hall, Mark Gahey, Mason Mount, Tommy Abraham. Some of these maybe were the right call, but when you look at who they brought in instead, it was Timo Werner, it was Kai Havertz, it was Mudryk. Or it's been Mudryk. Enzo Fernandez. It hasn't really worked out, and you know before they brought in Moses Caicedo, they had Ugo Chakru, they had Andre Santos. Now they haven't. Ugo Chakru has been injured, or maybe they want to loan him out. Maybe he's not necessarily good enough. Uh, they gave away Ruben Loftus-Cheek, who's doing well with AC Milan. It's been very they gave away Christian Pulisic. They didn't think he was good enough. So it's been interesting. And another thing to talk about with Chelsea is they also had a moment to do what Liverpool did with Philip Coutinho, when Liverpool basically uh, got the better of Barcelona. I don't know how to put it other than that. Uh, where they basically they sold Philip Coutinho for an absurd fee, like a Neymar like fee. When that deal was done, and they were basically doing it to replace Neymar as well. And Liverpool turned around and they bought Virgil van Dijk. They brought Fabinho from Monaco, and they bought Allison. And Allison, they made Allison the highest paid keeper at that point. And Van Dijk was the highest paid center back. on the market at that point, but they recognized who they wanted, and they sold a star player to do it. And in a weird way, Chelsea had the same opportunity to do the same thing with Eden Hazard when Real Madrid, wanted to make Hazard the same as like losing Cristiano Ronaldo, and Chelsea did not spend that money nearly as wisely, which we have seen. So I don't know. There are some pieces here to work with. Petrovic, Mato Gusto, Reece James is still a big miss. It is worth kind of saying that Chelsea dominated this Liverpool team on opening day, with Sterling and Reece James on that same side, just kind of owning Andy Robertson. Colwell is probably going to get an England call up for Southgate. I think he's someone to believe in. Cole Palmer, Nicholas Jackson ish is starting to show you some stuff. Now he's not necessarily scoring at a clip, but I think it's something that it's not easy to again get the better of Kanate. So uh, the problem is you've spent a billion, whatever you've spent on, and you don't have Mbappe or Harry Kane leading your line. You have this Nicholas Jackson, who's also a kid. I think he's only 22 years old as well. I think he doesn't have many years of senior football experience as well. He had that he had that uh, late goal scoring stretch at Villarreal or Valencia, and Chelsea decided to just really gamble on him, and so it's not really fair on his part as well. But he's showing you something. So at least stick with that. Next year they have Carly Chukwuemeka. He was showing some stuff before his injury. Nkuku, if he can get back, if he can be the player that he was at Leipzig, he's still someone to believe in. They'll have Wesley Fofana next season. They'll have Lavia next season. And the only kind of issue is, I mentioned Carly Chukwuemeka and Lavia. Maybe that is too many midfielders, and maybe you do have to sell Gallagher because of that. So we'll have to see. But really, a lot of this is not on Pochettino. They were trying to blame this on Graham Potter. The squad is put in such a confusing way that you have to look at the ownership. The Todd Bowley has come in and been maybe too hands on, you could say. Immediately firing Thomas Tuchel after like 5 games, playing football manager with monopoly money. It seems now he signed a lot of kids that people would have wanted, online. When he signed Mudryk, I thought that was a pretty good idea. When he signed Enzo, but not necessarily for the fee. When they signed Caicedo, I was quite jealous. But it's also when you take a look back and you kind of try to rationalize it a little bit more. Caicedo only had 1 year of senior football at Brighton in a different kind of setup with someone like a McAllister, and Caicedo has not looked the same player in possession that he did last season at Brighton with De Zerbi. Uh, Enzo has taken a while for him to kind of get going, and it doesn't seem like he has an engine room. He doesn't really cover a lot of ground. There have been a couple games when he's looked quite good. Man City would be an example, but there've been other times when he hasn't really turned out. Mudryk is a project, and the unfortunate thing about him is one, he was also with Roberto De Zerbi before De Zerbi went to Brighton with in the uh, at Shakhtar Donetsk. But the other thing about him is it's one thing when you're a team and you're not really. It's weird to say with De Zerbi's Shakhtar, but at least in the Champions League, they were always the underdog team. They had teams coming onto them, and they were able to go on a counterattack and able to break. And when you can just run with the space behind, you don't necessarily have to have a lot of technical technique to. It's different when you're able to do that. Averse having to go against teams that are usually set up against you, and you have to make decisions to make them move in tight spaces. Versus well well qualified defenders. We'll put it that way. Maybe the level of defender is probably a little bit better than what he was used to at Shakhtar, and it seems Mudryk has really struggled to with that. But another thing too is all of these are kids. Not a single player I've mentioned is older than 22 years old. Maybe Enzo is 23, but not a single player is over 24. And you've got them on 300K a week, really big wages. I mean, Mo Salah, it took him till he was like 30 to be earning that much. Um, I think a big problem they have, it's similar to like Man United. When you're playing, it's one thing to have senior vets on that kind of wage bill, but you have kids. They haven't necessarily been proven to be vets. And how motivated, how arsed are you going to be to run your socks off, to be peak shape all year round, to eat right, sleep right, not go out and enjoy the party scene, to be in bed early at night, to be able to have your body recover and do that all the time, to take training seriously when you've got that much money you're earning every single week. There's a lot of distractions in London as well, and that's long been a recruiting pitch. Come to London and enjoy your lifestyle. Earn this insane kind of wage bill. We'll pay a signing bonus that your agent will enjoy. So that's been how Chelsea's kind of operated, and I think the way the game is has moved, it's you can't just be a technical side. You've gotta be a team that's able to go into duels and get yourself dirty, and that's where someone like an Endo can come in, and he's almost better than an Enzo, because he puts his body on the line. McAllister, you wouldn't have expected he would be better in duels than Caicedo. At least in this game, he was, and at least throughout the year, he has been. He's been much better out of possession. Trying to win the ball back, and that's what the game is about. Stopping transitions or creating them, and you get them through turnovers. That's people call it an engine room, a midfield engine room, and that's what it is. And it's not easy to find necessarily guys with that kind of mindset, and I think that's kind of been the problem. Chelsea have maybe tried to buy people that were really good on YouTube, but maybe they didn't have that kind of mindset. So, I mean, it's not the end of the year, the end of the end of the road. Essentially, they have leads on Wednesday. They can rebound. They still have a chance to do a cup run in the FA Cup. We'll have to see if they're able to recover. Uh, and do they stick with Pochettino or not? Now is not really the time to go into his coaching search with Bayern looking maybe, Barcelona reportedly. Even Man United might decide to move off Ten Hag. Liverpool are already out there, and Chelsea with all their Chelsea is not going to be the team that they've been in the past because they're not going to be able to just promise a new manager that they can open up a blank checkbook because of the financial fair play issues that are out there. So I don't really know where they go for that. Do they just stomach? Hey, why don't we let Pochettino kind of do something he did at Southampton, do something he did at Tottenham, where he built up something over time. They have a lot of youthful legs that he can maybe do something with, and it's not easy to just come in and just immediately, quickly, turn things around. Ange at Spurs is really unique in that respect. De Zerbi, likewise. That's not normally something you see a manager just coming in and having a completely different imprint and just it being that successful immediately. Ten Hag won a trophy last season in his first year, and people immediately want him to be gone. And, he's got Man United, I think, in fifth place now. So I think just Chelsea fans have to keep a little bit of perspective of that as well. But anyways, that's kind of it. Uh, and Yeah, I don't have, also my voice is kind of gone as well, so, I'll do something later when, I'll touch on what Arsenal and Newcastle did. I mean, Arsenal destroyed Newcastle. I thought, I guess maybe I'll kind of just quickly, highlight and end off with that. Just, trashing them. I think it was 4-1, by, first starting off with the Gabriel or a Sven Botman own goal, and then Kai Havertz, then Zaka, then Kilwar, and then at the very end, Joe Willock, former Arsenal player, so that I guess that was good for him. Newcastle came into this shell shocked, almost like they'd never seen a press before in their lives. Arsenal came onto this not having the best week in the Champions League. I don't even think they had a shot on goal, which is kind of crazy to say. But Arteta maybe took some lessons from that. It's one thing to have Declan Rice to be kind of your lone pivot but win the ball back. He's one of the best ball winners in the world football, not just the league. And he's not terrible in possession. He can make some pretty good decisions. Quickly. Uh, he's not the worst passer when someone is open, but he doesn't like passing through lines. He doesn't like taking risk essentially. And what you saw in this game was Jorginho being back in that pivot allowed Rest to be a little further ahead. And a lot of these chances in the early first half came from Jorginho actually being the person to float some balls into the box. The first corner kick comes from him doing that, and Saka is able to get on the end of it. I think that ends up going to a corner kick, and then they score on the corner kick. Arsenal are the best team now in in set pieces. They keep scoring on corner kicks. The Kiwar goal was from a corner kick or set piece, and they get the second goal because Jorginho as well is able to float a ball over the top that finds Martinelli making a clever run across the goal. He's gotten Trippier can't recover. Newcastle fall asleep a little bit, and Martinelli then has a square ball that Kai Havertz is able to finish, and then Saka they get the third goal from Saka. Basically, fooling Livramento. Livramento allows him to get the chop onto his left foot to basically pass it in. Um, but I think the reason why Livramento is maybe fooled here is last week we saw Saka actually being able to go with his right foot. Earlier in the game, we saw him actually having a pretty good chance in the first half where he chopped onto his right foot and actually had a shot, and it forced a pretty good save by Karius. And that's another thing too. Newcastle went into this not really with their most senior 11. They're playing Lewis Miley every single game. He's only 17. Is what's kind of talking about that. Arsenal did a pretty good job to make it so Bruno Guimaraes could not get a lot of touches on the ball. And Arsenal out of possession were amazing. Newcastle, they never allowed Newcastle to have any kind of more than two or three touches without having someone draped all over them, and Newcastle were not able to play through them. And more often than not, they were just trying to go long, and Saliba, Gabriel, whoever, Ben White were able to win those headers, and immediately Arsenal will get able to get the ball back. And I think even for the third goal, they forced I think it's Sven Botman into a really bad pass. They basically bait him to try to get the ball to Bruno Guimaraes because they just couldn't. And I think it's Havertz that actually does a real good job to kind of read it and gets the interception, and then they eventually get a goal from that. So that was Arsenal, and this was quite impressive, to say the least. And unfortunately for Newcastle, it's another one of those situations where Eddie Howe just can't really seem to get a break. I mean, 0.16, even though they did score, I think Arsenal for the last like 5 or 6 games do not have an XG over 1. It's less than 2. I can say that confidently. Versus every single game week, it's like point 3, point 4. It's unbelievable. Or even even less than that. It's just versus Liverpool, they weren't able to. And Liverpool scored versus them. Liverpool didn't have more than like a point 0.3 xG. Arsenal have been unreal to start this season, and just again, teams aren't even getting looks at Raya. They scored, but the game was already over. So, uh, lots of uh, lots of impressive stuff for Arsenal. They've been trying to make a title push. They wanted to get a response after the Porto maybe disappointment. They did that. I think it's interesting how we've seen Havertz kind of use this false nine little box four shape in some of these goals. It's different when maybe they're playing a deep block when you need Trossard to help because we saw Trossard help them out with versus Burnley versus West Ham. In this case, they kind of wanted to really press and do something different with Havertz kind of leading them in the front line. And the only maybe negative to say is there was a chance for Kai Havertz to make it 3-0 earlier in the game, and he missed it. He missed the 1v1, and that's kind of the only versus Liverpool when Arsenal's first goal in that game, from what I remember. Kai Havertz was in on goal, and actually Alisson was able to save it, and then the rebound fell to Saka. So Havertz in 1v1 is maybe kind of the nitpick, but only that, really. I mean, just the out of possession, possession work is again as good as anyone in Europe right now, and you can't go long for them because of Saliba and Gabriel. And with Newcastle, it's they just couldn't get anyone into the game at all. And I thought it's the worst that I've seen Sven Botman and Fabian Schär on the ball. And the only thing I was wondering is Dan Burn help them out and build a play way more than I realized. Because Livramento actually did start. I got what I asked for. I figured there's no way Dan Burn can play again, and Livramento got his start. And man, that whole back line just completely collapsed. And I feel bad for Karius. I don't really feel like it was really on him, but it was not their best day at the office. And then with Man City also go on to win uh, in a bit of a different fashion, though. It was not necessarily comfortable. I mean, it started off actually okay. Getting the Holland has a shot that spilled, and then Foden's able to just kind of get the rebound. Looked like maybe they could get in second with John Stones that forced a save. John Stones had a bit of a wild day. He didn't really have a position. Uh, that's what's kind of talking about that. It's the second game in a row that we didn't see Kevin De Bruyne. It took a while for them to actually handle Brentford as well. Brentford because they played at Brentford in the midweek. And, they went on to win that game because I think basically Ajar Collins basically slips, and it allows Holland to have a free 1v1, and Holland's able to finish. Uh, and they Man City were not necessarily bad versus Brentford. I think they had like 30 shots, and fucking actually had to make like 10 saves. But they were not necessarily their lightning best here, and I do think it's a different team. It's a different team with Kevin De Bruyne. Pep went with trying to give Foden a little bit more of that kind of free number 10 kind of space, and Foden gets the goal. But at the same time, this was not a slick Man City team at all. And Bournemouth on the other end started quite poor, but they finished in the second half lightning quick or lightning good. I think they out of 13 shots, 9 of them were in the second half. Man City had 50, finished with 15. They only had 3 or 4 in the second. They were kind of holding on, to be honest. So with Man City, the storyline was Holland. Holland didn't necessarily have his best performance. There were a couple times when he looked like he had a shot on, and was kind of scuffing it a little bit. Um, I I think he's maybe still struggling a little bit with his foot. I haven't really heard anything about that, but a foot injury to me is not easy to recover from. I would imagine, especially if it's kind of like a bone bruise or whatever it was. I think it's possible maybe that's bothering him. It could also just be uh, nothing to really look at. He scored. Put the 1v1 versus Brentford. Was able to put the 1v1 versus Everton. Scored 2 versus Everton. I don't know. I just think there was some talk a little bit online, like what's the matter with Holland? Because he didn't have his best performance a little bit versus Chelsea. I thought that was more less with the chances coming to his head. But in this case, his finishing was not necessarily that great. Pep took him off and allowed Alvarez to kind of fit in the game with. And Man City were not necessarily better with Alvarez. It is worth saying that. So I think this team goes as far as Kevin De Bruyne takes them. I really do, and it's they were able to be first in the table or close to it without Kevin De Bruyne. But it just in the last few weeks, you've seen them look an entirely different team when he's playing versus when they're not. So everyone's gonna try to make Phil Foden to be the key part of the team. I still think it's Kevin De Bruyne, and if not him, it's Rodri, and then if not him, it's Sean Stones. And I think that's another thing too. The back line was Nathan Ake, Ruben Diaz, John Stones, and then Akanji. It was a little different not to have Walker. Still not having Gvardiol. I think Akanji works out better for them as like a fullback than through the center. And John Stones, I think, is City's best defender right now. I think he's overtaken Ruben Diaz. Uh, it just helps. It hurts that he's not always fit or available. But the similar thing, he doesn't even do what Virgil van Dijk does, but just on the ball quality is unique. He can play like any position on the field, it seems. And he was just running into spaces with the ball. Bournemouth were trying like desperately to get it off him, and he was just creating stuff for others. And Man City had to do a lot of defending in the second half of this game because Bournemouth finished quite strong, and I think it'll be interesting to see if perhaps they would actually play with Stones for the last part of the season. If so, that maybe does kind of change them a little bit as well. If not, I actually think Ruben Diaz is someone that you can get at now. We saw it versus Chelsea. I think we saw it in this game. I thought Semenyo actually was able to kind of get past Nathan Ake and able to frustrate Ruben Diaz. I thought Yango Waratara had some success in the second half, and I thought Solanke did as well. And the only thing with Bournemouth is it's just really unlucky that they weren't able to get any of their more than less half chances, but chances to go in because they were getting into such good areas, but at the same time, they weren't really able to necessarily make Ederson work a ton. Ederson did have to make a few saves, but it wasn't nearly enough. And then there was one really big chance towards the very end at the Areola brought on Inez Oriel to kind of play with Solanke, to play with a second striker, and someone sent in a really good pass. I think it was Ryan Christie. It's a great cross into the box, and he gets all this. He gets such a good head on it, and unfortunately, it just goes just a little wide. But other than that, there was a lot of positives in this game. I thought Ryan Christie and Kirkish were quite positive in the second half as well. And just the only thing to say is Bournemouth have not had the best start to their 2024. They had that good November and December run. They've not really, gotten started yet here. This was a positive though. This was a little bit better, but at the same time, they still get nothing out of this game. So that's kind of the only like kind of slightly negative. And then I'll get started, or I'll try to run down what Man United and Fulham do. Let's see how we're doing for time because I don't want to spend. Yeah, I'm fine. So, Fulham go on to beat Man United. You get in the first goal with Calvin Bassey and then Harry Maguire in like the 90th minute, and you figure that that's just what Man United do. And then Alex Iwobi comes on, and Iwobi had a couple chances early in the first half to actually score. Flopped on a couple of those efforts. They were missing William. They were missing Paulinho, and it wasn't really the most healthy of Fulham team. But at the same time, Man United are missing all of their players, a number of their stars as well. Harry Maguire keeps having to start for them, and it's funny how he gets that tying goal. I think it's also fitting too. He gets that tying goal, and they still lose. So you don't have the UK press being able to celebrate and praise Harry Maguire being back in the team. England don't have to deal with any of those headlines. Maybe Gareth Southgate should bring Harry Maguire with them because he's bad. He makes them worse. Not to really go at him, but every single time that he plays such a. I don't even have to say this with notes. They play such a deep line with him and Raphael Varane, and what was happening in this game, and you saw it the first half, you saw it in the second half, was Bruno would be kind of pressing a little bit, so he'd leave that space, and you have Kobe Mano and Casemiro that have to guard like a 40-yard area by themselves, and they just can't do it because Harry Maguire and Varane are never next to them. And what Fulham were able to do is they were able, because that space in between Maguire, Varane, think of that as a line, and the space between wherever Casemiro and Mano would usually are, was almost like 25 or 30 yards. And so it was relatively easy for Fulham to find a way to kind of play through that, to find Alex Iwobi or Pereira, someone, Harry Wilson, find someone to be able to receive the ball in that area, turn, and then run at a back line that was always in retreat. And that was what Fulham were doing the entire game. And just that's the problem. You can't play a high line. You have to play really you have to play compact. They're not able to play compact. The only time they've been able to do that was versus Liverpool when Bruno wasn't playing. So you can't play compact. You can't play in a high line, and they were just reliant on Fulham basically missing chances. And on the other end, they were really poor in possession. I thought it was the worst that Casemiro had looked in a long time, and he actually ended up having to go out because he basically clattered heads with someone. It's the second week in a row when I looked at someone like a Harrison Reed, and I was like, he gets into this Man United team right now. I said that last week with a Lakanga and Ross Barkley. It's just it's not something you would. Sasa Lukic, I thought outplayed Kobe Mano. So it's just Pereira, I thought outplayed Bruno. So Man United kind of in a weird situation. They went into this game without Rasmus Højlund, so Rashford had to go through the middle. We're seeing we're getting more and more evidence that Rashford does not like playing through the middle. He only likes playing on the left side, which is not necessarily ideal. They couldn't get him the ball. He was very hard to be influential. Garnacho was playing on the left. He actually was relatively good. And Man United went into this game without, I mentioned how Fulham had guys being out. Man United had to come into this game with Omari Forson, a 19-year-old. He had debuted, and poor. Not to go at the not to go at the kid, but it felt like he kind of was a little bit invisible. It didn't really impact the game much, unfortunately for him. So Man United just it felt like they were a little bit on fool's gold. They had a relatively 5 or 6 games of getting good results. I didn't think they were getting good performances, though, and, it's every single game week, it's just allowing when you're sitting back like that, you're allowing teams to just get so many looks on your goal. They average, like, 20 shots on their goal every single game. And in possession, they aren't able to build back. They aren't able to, pass from the back. In this game, without Luke Shaw, Lindelof's not really the same. You don't really have fullback support to help you in the attack either. Dallow's able to do that on the right side, but it was rough. Fulham were able to basically able to pass through Man United quite ease or run through them, which has been kind of a theme as well. And on the flip side, Man United were only able to really go long. The few times they were able to create some chances is when they did go long, and both teams had 20 shots or so in the game. But really, the kind of closing thing that won Fulham the game was uh, Marco Silva decided to first he retreated. First he took off. I believe it was some kind of a midfielder to bring on a third center back. So he basically retreated and invited a lot of pressure onto him, and it did not work out. Man United actually ended up getting their goal, and then he decided to bring on Adama Traore to just kind of make some runs. And Harry Maguire gets caught. It starts with like Fulham having like a throw in, and they try a risky ball, and I think Harry Maguire first tries to win the header and basically heads it right to Adama Traore, and then from there it's really easy. He's able to skate past Christian Eriksen, who had then to come on at halftime. I think Christian Eriksen came on for Casemiro. So he skates past Christian Eriksen, and then he just runs past Harry Maguire like he's not even there either. And then that's kind of the reason also why you can't play Harry Maguire in a high line. So there's give and take here because it's easy to really get past him. So it's just it's symbolic, and Adama was able to dribble all the way up, and then he made the right decision to pass it to Iwobi, and then Iwobi made a good cut inside, kind of fooled Dallo a little bit, and was able to pass it in. Uh, so Man United had 21 shots, Fulham was 17. 50% at halftime in possession. Man United did finish with 60%. And just it was a celebration a little bit for Marco Silva and Fulham, because it's taken a while for him to get his players back. He lost Calvin Bassey to African Cup of Nations. He lost. He didn't have Paulinho and William this game. They were getting a lot of chances actually to maybe put this away. Another thing too is Andy Robinson was fantastic for them. He kept getting into some really good areas, and Fulham were able to attack with their fullback, and that allowed Iwobi to kind of be basically a second attacker with a free will as well, and they were just kind of giving Dallo just nothing. Dallo would have to decide: do I take Anthony Robinson on? Do I take Alex Iwobi on? Because again, the 19-year-old kid was not coming back and to helping out with defensive work, and this game could have been a lot worse than it was, and to me it is feeling that Fulham were able to win at the end, and you're not missing you're missing William, missing Paulinho, but you get back Calvin Bassey and you get back Alex Iwobi. Both were away to African Cup of Nations, and both lo and behold are your goal scorers. So I think that's kind of fitting as well, and yeah, again with Man United. Not to spend a ton of time, people are going to lay blame at Ten Hag, but you look at who he had on the bench. Omari Farson, no Rasmus Højlund. Just recruitment has just been poor. Injuries at the back, no, all this negativity started happening when Luke Shaw started to pick up his injuries again, and Lissandro Martinez picked up his injury again. So it forced you to all of a sudden start playing Harry Maguire again, and it's not adding up. It's not solid. And then just in the middle, Casemiro and Mano just look too stretched. You only have you're asking two players to cover a lot of ground. If you're not going to have Garnacho and the wing player to kind of help you out a little bit on the sides, and it was just too easy, way too easy. This has been coming. This has been coming for a little bit. They allowed 25 shots versus West Ham. They allowed Luton to outshoot them. I think they had 24 shots as well. It felt coming, and it's okay. It's okay for Man United because all they have is Man City coming next week, and they were not necessarily great versus them in the first meeting. Man City got again maybe a little lucky. I think they got an early PK, but Man United really fell apart in the second half, and Harry Maguire versus Erling Haaland or even Johnny Evans. I'm not gonna. maybe Onana can make like 10 saves and somehow they can nick like a 1-0, but I'm not gonna, or maybe a 1-1. I'm not gonna hold I'm not gonna hold water on that, but we'll see. We'll see what they end up doing. And then I'll end a little bit with Aston Villa. I don't want to go through all of them. I will talk a little bit with Aston Villa because they started off on fire, getting two early goals. Actually, they're up 3-0 with Watkins, then Douglas Luiz with two, and then Niakate was able to get one at the very end before halftime, and then Gibbs White immediately made it 3-2, and they did make it 3-2, and they did make it interesting. And then Nottingham Forest. I forget who it was, but someone had a really bad pass. I think it's Dominguez, a pass back to the keeper, and then basically it's just it's a straight giveaway that I think Ollie Watkins is able to run onto a free ball in the box. He's able to get enough. He's able to beat the keeper, and he's able to get some kind of deflection to go to Liam Bailey, who's standing right there for a tap in, and at 4-2 that kind of killed the game off. Unfortunately for Nottingham Forest, and they went to this kind of with a weird lineup. It almost seemed like Nuno tried to play Niakate as like a uh, the left fullback, but really with Nico Williams. I think the idea was to have Nico Williams in possession to make some runs and to be kind of like a new winger and to maybe shift to a back three, and you eventually have three center backs. But it did not work out because Nottingham Forest did not have a lot of the ball. Aston Villa was just kind of dominating everything. And when Aston Villa had possession, you required Niakate to be able to defend out wide, and Liam Bailey ate him for fun. Leon Bailey was amazing this game. Uh, and so it's fitting he gets the goal. I think he actually had the first assist to Ollie Watkins, and he was unguardable, unplayable. So it did not necessarily work out for Nottingham Forest, and Nottingham Forest are not out of this as well. I think they're the only. I think they're the team right above Luton, and we still don't know if they're going to be hit with a sanction points deduction with the later ruling or not. I mean, five big chances for Villa, four for Forest. One thing to say about Aston Villa is there's so much positive about the first half, and then the second half was kind of and what happened is they lost Paul Torres early in the second half, and they had to end. I think that the center back pairing that they ended with was Clements Longley and Kellen Chambers or Luke Chambers, someone Chambers, and they're not. Villa played with a high line that everyone knows, and it was very easy for them to actually. I think Divock Origi came on for Nottingham Forest in the second half, and they get two of their goals, but basically Origi being able to flight something in between or over the top where they weren't able to recognize a Gibbs White run, and they weren't able to recognize someone else. So this was not ideal. Or I think actually Anthony Alanga was in shortly after that to actually make it 3-3. And Alanga had a pretty bad miss. He can maybe do better with the 1v1. But they were lucky. They were lucky a little bit with that. And they're without they were not without Konza now. They're without Babaku Kumar. It looks like they may be without him for the rest of the season. Losing Paul Torres is not great because you just got him back. Uh, Villas are starting to suffer a little bit of those injury crises that I said they had been very fortunate to avoid in the beginning of the season. And it's positive that they haven't lost Watkins or Liam Bailey, but they're also alive in Europa, and they have a point lead now. They have a little gap on Aston Villa, and now it helps with Man United not being able to win their game. But and Aston Villa have some of their injury issues with their fullbacks. So it's going to come down to who can maybe avoid to stay fit the rest of the way. But Aston Villa are going to be significantly more vulnerable with their center back pairing not being preferred essentially. And I think you basically saw that they were very fortunate. But that said, to not to stop with the negativity. This was as good a game in possession as I think any team has been this entire season. They had 92% pass accuracy, and they were threading through Nottingham Forest for fun. The runs and the open play passing from Tielemans, John McGinn, Douglas Luiz, Leon Bailey, Ramsey, Matty Cash were all looking to get on the ball, quickly moving it. The second goal they score is beautiful. It's like Leon Bailey and Matty Cash kind of switching places. There's a ball threaded to the box, and then there's a cutback ball that Jacob Ramsey just runs into kind of unmarked, and then he has a really nice turn, and then he passes it backwards to Douglas Luiz to kind of just like smash it in. It's a beautiful goal. And good for Jacob Ramsey to actually come in. It's taken a while for him to recover. He hasn't gotten his season really going, but the last few weeks he started to get a couple more starts under his belt, and he looks good. And then a quick moment about Leon Bailey. He's I think he's comeback player of the season. I don't necessarily know if they do that or not, but he's got 15 goal involvements already. 8 goals and seven assists, and he's as important to their offense as Ollie Watkins. I mean, Ollie Watkins obviously does a lot of the off the ball stuff. Liam Bailey is more the creative type. He's creative dribbling, creative passing. But he's providing some end product as well. And the games when Liam Bailey isn't playing, maybe it's Musi Diaby, they're not the same offense. So Liam Bailey, if they do get top four or they and do something in Europa, he's going to be a big part of that, and good for him because it took a little while for him to you didn't really know when he came to Villa, you didn't know what his position was. I think Gerard or someone was playing it at wing back at one point in a back three, and that wasn't always necessarily working out either. And Emery has finally found a place for him, and man, is he looked quite good. Playing off the right or playing in a kind of a front two with Ollie Watkins. So great to see that, and good to always highlight that and reward it. And with Nottingham Forest, this was not not ideal. Niakate at left back. It wasn't just him though. Felipe had a bad game. Muriel had a bad game as well, and both were basically taken off at halftime. A lot of changes were made after the first half, and Nuno was not happy, but was able to get the game to 3-2. So I guess you can maybe say that, but that's pretty much it. And then with Crystal Palace and Burnley, Palace do go on to win 3-0, thanks to a red card by Josh Brownhill. But Palace forced the red card. It is worth kind of saying that. Palace went after Burnley. They actually tried to press them a little bit higher up. He went. The new manager Oliver Glasgow went with a different formation, and basically played. It was like a 3-4, maybe 2-1, kind of shape. Matata kind of leading the line, and then you had Ayu kind of as a half space player, and Edouard. And in the second half, they took off Edouard and brought on this Mateus Franca guy, and Franca helps lead a couple of goals later in the second half as well. So brave to bring on a young player. And Mateus Franca was someone that Hodgson wasn't playing, so maybe the new manager move has worked out. Um, Another thing, they were playing a back three. One, you got to see Chris Richards play in a back three, and it worked out for him as well because he's able to help get a goal, get the opening goal. I think it's his first in the EPL, so good for Chris Richards, good for the US. And then two, you're able to play Munoz and Tyrick Mitchell as kind of wingbacks and not necessarily fullbacks. So then maybe they don't have to necessarily worry about doing a lot of defensive duty, and they can actually provide some more stuff in offense. And maybe that can kind of benefit Mitchell and Franca connect a little bit for one of those goals as well. And Franca basically creates the PK. So Franca was a really good sub. Burnley are rough. They were the second best even before the red card, and the red card just kind of killed it. Yeah, you can't really read off the stats because they don't really matter. 2 shots all game, 4 big chances for Palace. But I mean, the problem for Burnley is I, I I was I was somewhat more high on them. This has been my biggest mistake, or kind of self own this season has been figuring that Vincent Company and Burnley would figure this out and would be probably middle of the table by the time basically Christmas time. I think I said that back in early November or mid October, and my reasoning for that was Burnley when it came to how they were passing the ball and keeping it were middle of the pack passing numbers, and it just feels something has happened where they've steadily gotten worse as the season has gone on. I don't necessarily know if teams have figured them out, or what it is. I do think their shape has changed. They've went to a back four. I mean, they were back four before. They went to a 4-4-2, basically a full out. They used to. I think they started off being a 4-3-3. Uh, they brought in a couple guys at the January window. Esteve, I think what was is new. Assignon, the right back is someone new. They brought in Fofana, So they tried to bring in some guys in January to help them out, and just nothing has worked. And they're not even looking competitive. I mean, even before the red card, they weren't looking competitive. So I fear a little bit for Vincent Company and Burnley. I mean, I've already kind of basically put a pin through them in Sheffield, anyways. But this was kind of rough as well, unfortunately. And then let's see how we're doing. And then with Brighton and Everton. So it's two ways to kind of look at this. Everton at least get a point versus Brighton. It's probably something you would have accepted before then if you're an Everton fan. But they were winning the game. They get it from a free kick. It's a free kick delivered by Pickford, and they get it from Braithwaite, not someone you would expect. And it's not like a header either. He has to collect a loose ball on the ground, so he has a good touch, and then he has a really nice hit. He has to volley this in. And they get it to within the 94th minute or whatever it was, and by this point, they're playing up a man. Billy Gilmore has gone to go for a ball. He stretched his leg is outstretched, and it's high on Onana. It's a red card, and Brighton in this game with 13 shots in the second half and 71 possession. They ended the game with 64%, but they had 71% of the second half playing down a man. It was almost like Everton wanted to invite them on to themselves, maybe try to do something on the counter, but it wasn't really working out. And unfortunately for Everton as well, it's another case where Calvert-Lewin almost scored, but didn't. And then Beto came on, and Beto didn't necessarily offer a whole lot of threat either. And it's not necessarily looking great. The positive for them is get a point. I think they basically I think they drew versus Crystal Palace as well. And then the only thing to say is uh, they got some help by getting those points some of those points back. They lost 10. I think it's only 6, so got a couple points back. And what did they do with those? What with the other investigation that's still out there? But you look at who they have. Everton had Decore. Everton had Jack Harrison. They had Calvert-Lewin. They had the preferred back line, with Tarkowski and Braithwaite, with Makalenko. They had him. They had Dwight McNeil. This is relatively as strong 11 as you can. Maybe Onana instead of Idrissa Gueye, maybe. But there's not really someone on the bench or someone that's injured where you're like, oh, they were just really missing him. That could help them out. One thing that's kind of funny is all of a sudden Neil Maupay is starting to look really good for Brentford, and it's like Everton can maybe use him, but it's not necessarily looking great for them, and you don't really know how if they get to a point where they have to chase points, if they have to chase something. I don't know if they'd be able to catch up, but at least right now they can play some offense or some defense, where they do have a little bit of a lead now. Helped without getting those 4 points back, and then with Brighton, no Batoma, and the front line did not have any chemistry at all. It was for some reason Ferguson and Welbeck have never really worked when they've been tried together. Ferguson and João Pedro do work, but Ferguson and Welbeck for some reason hasn't worked out. Adingra was playing on the left side because no Batoma. Facundo Bernete was tried on the right. He's not really a wide player, so that didn't necessarily work out. One thing to say, in the second half, we did see Enciso come back, which is big for them. He is as exciting a final third kind of attacking player as you can get, and they've desperately missed him. And he had a nice little pass to Ansu Fati, who's also back for them, which helps. Where they nearly scored, playing down a man. So positive at least there. It might. We don't necessarily know how often we'll see either of those players, but at least not just in the league, that'll help them in Europa League, who they still have. Isiso is a fun little special player. People maybe forget about how good he can be. He had a great shot on him. Has a better pace than you would expect. He's not just a midfielder. Has pretty good work rate as well. And man, does he have an eye for a final third pass, final third ball, and a terrific shot. He's mini. I don't want to say Kevin De Bruyne but at least what he showed last season, it was similar to that. To be honest, and I'm not trying to exaggerate. And the way he started the season, I think he was responsible for 4 goals. 2 goals and maybe 2 assists. Versus Wolves in the second game of the season before he got hurt. He is, as long as he's recovered fully, and we'll have to see. It's not easy to when you have an injury that long, it's easy to have a setback. But if he's able to play what he was before, this is a monster player for them to get back. So that's good to see. And then kind of mentioned it with West Ham and Brentford. West Ham kind of thumped them 4-2. Brentford had a chance to maybe get back. It was 2-0. Then they got a 2-1 with Neil Maupay. Neil Maupay continues to score for Brentford. That's maybe a positive. But West Ham went into the first half having 15 shots, and they ended with like 17. So that kind of says a little bit of it too. They didn't necessarily have as strong a start in the second half as they did in the first, but they still scored as many goals. Brentford may be unlucky to honestly. I think they only had 2 shots, so they outshot like 2-15. But they were maybe unlucky not to go in at halftime all square because it looked like Reguilon was actually pushed in the back, and that could have been a PK late in the second half. Ivan Toney had a couple of moments when he was in on goal, and these were half chances. These weren't really like misses or sitters. But he wasn't able to put them on goal. He had one right at the first half, and then he had one in the second half that forced a really good save from Areola. I honestly think this game could have ended 4-4. West Ham were not necessarily great in the second half, and Brentford lost Ben Mee, brought in Nathan Collins, and just within like 5 minutes of that, Mo Kudus had a really nice pass into the box that Jared Bowen was able to basically find Jared Bowen all alone. Like, why would you not mark Jared Bowen? And Bowen's able to get his hat trick. Bowen with 2 really good goals, or in the first half, and then the third for the hat trick in the second with a nice little header. His movement in the box was terrific. And the first goal, basically it's like a first, or the second goal was like a nice first timer shot after a square ball into the box, and then the first goal is just a terrific hit that basically beats Flecken to the near post. Just a wonderful, wonderful kind of kind of a cheek little finish, outside the boot kind of finish that he was able to pull off. With West Ham, they were able to get Paqueta back, and they looked a better team with him back, but he wasn't able to play the whole game, and for the most part, West Ham, I think, got lucky a little bit here. Is weird to say as that is. Now, you don't want to necessarily downplay what they did because they were in free throw mode before this. Yeah, absolutely getting smashed. Back to back. They lost to Man United, then did not look competitive at all versus Arsenal, and I think whoever they played before that or after that, they did not look competitive either. But this was positive at least, and they were able to get Paqueta back, so that would help. And then the fourth goal they got, actually, I didn't even mention it, is from Emerson. And Emerson maybe had goal of the weekend. This is just an insane hit. Flecken can't get anywhere near it. And then Brentford made a couple subs. They brought in Damsgaard, brought in Weiser, and Damsgaard was able to actually feed Weiser for the assist. Weiser was able to put one away. And then basically it was batten down the hatches time. Brentford actually played pretty well for the final 20 minutes, and it looks like they were maybe going to get that third goal to make it squeaky bun time for West Ham fans. And it just Areola was quite good to end the game to make it only 4-2. So Brentford are kind of in free throw mode, unfortunately for them, and they've lost. They've lost Pinnock, they've lost Ben Mee, and since they've lost Pinnock, going back to the Liverpool game, they have not looked the same team. And Collins and Ayard have not necessarily been very reassuring, to say the least. And Ayard has been tried to be as like a sweeper, kind of a center back, and a back three, and that has not worked out at all. And you just it doesn't feel like Thomas Frank wants to play Zanka Jurgensen there. And Nathan Collins, maybe he can be played there, but he's quite iffy as well. And them missing Ethan Pinnock is massive. It really is, and it's just that's unfortunate. And with West Ham, I think Paqueta unlocks the whole offense. Even Emerson, it seemed like it was able to get into better positions with Paqueta back. Bowen is excellent, and finally they were able to actually get him some touches in the box. That's been a thing with them too. They haven't even been able to locate him recently. So I don't even think he had scored going back to mid-December. And he was on something like 12 goals before that. So he gets a hat trick here. His movement was just really, really good. So it's not just someone that's just trying to make back shoulder runs all the time. He was quite clever. When to kind of create a little space for himself. His touches in the box were quite good to collect the ball as well. And fair play to him. I didn't really know Boeing had this in his game before the season. And I rated him being able to play on the right and being off of goals, uh, being from a wide position, being able to come inside, which he showed the last couple of seasons. I didn't know he could do this. So fair play to him. And Ariola, fair play to him as well, because all things considered, he's had a pretty good year for them. It's not been easy for David Moyes to move off Fabianski, and he's brought in Ariola instead. I think he's maybe a little bit better in possession with his feet. Maybe that's why, but he's made some big time saves for them and made some big saves in this game as well. And then with Brentford, uh, I, the negative is the recruitment has not been terrific. And when they've had injuries, who have they been able to look at on the bench instead? It has not necessarily worked out. Ayer was brought in a couple of seasons ago, I think from the Scottish League. He just has not looked like, he's a 6'7" guy, and it's almost like he's not a center back. And he almost likes playing out wide. He's almost like a fullback, but he doesn't really have pace to him. But he's like technically good. He can dribble a little bit, but he's a strange player. You don't really know what to do with him. And then they spent a lot of money on Nathan Collins in the summer. And one thing I was texting my buddy Jeremy, who is a Brentford fan, is it's weird because it doesn't feel like Wolves have missed him at all. I look at Wolves and I'm thinking, Toddy Gomez is someone that I would probably want. Max Kilman, I can understand, spending some money on him. English center back as well. You get maybe some press there. He's someone to maybe build something with. He's young, and even Craig Dawson, someone wily old vet like him. But Brentford don't really play with a high line, and like Wolves don't really play with a high line either. Dawson can do a job, and they went for Nathan Collins, and he has not worked out this season, unfortunately for them. But I don't know. There's still time for him to kick on. We'll have to see. Someone's going to have to step up big for them. Missing Ben Mee uh, and now missing Pennick, and we'll see how long Ben Mee is out. Brentford were actually relatively in an okay shape. And then, you think back, they were beating Aston Villa, and then Ben Mee got a red card, and then he had to miss 3 games, and Brentford just tanked it after that, and really, I didn't even realize it was that bad, but since that Aston Villa game, they beat I think they beat Nottingham Forest in like a helter-skelter game. It was like the first game Tony back, and they beaten Wolves like 2-0. And I think that's it. I think they only have 2 wins. I don't think maybe they have a draw somewhere in there. But they've been smashed since that Aston Villa game, like early December, which is not good. And the last few games, now there was only 1-0 to Man City, but Flecken had to make 10 saves in that game. They've been conceding at a high clip as well. They conceded 4 versus Liverpool. They conceded 3 versus Man City. That's when Phil Foden had his fun. They conceded 3 versus Tottenham. I think they were even leading that game going into halftime, 1-0. They ended that game 3-2. They're conceding more than 2 goals the last 4 or 5 games now. So it's not great for Brentford, and unfortunately for them, the schedule does not get easier. It's Chelsea, then it's Arsenal. You don't really know what you're going to get with Chelsea. You do know what you're going to get with Arsenal. I mean, they did play them well at the Emirates. It is worth saying that, but I don't know. Arsenal are kind of flying right now. We'll have to see. Maybe Tony will have something for the team that's trying to. He's been twerking for. And then they have Burnley, and Burnley will be a must-win game. And then they have Man United. They played Man United well at Old Trafford right before they got to like the 90th minute before McTominay was like the hero. And then it's Brighton, and it's just gulp. I don't see them beating Brighton. And then Aston Villa, likewise. They were beating Aston Villa a couple, back in December before Ben Mee had the red card. But that would be hard to see as well. But maybe Aston Villa. I mean, Aston Villa are going to be in a rundown to try to go for top 4. So, but they'll also try to be. They might be in Europe. So we'll have to see. But April after the Villa game, April is doable. So maybe you get Mbremo back. Maybe you get Ethan Pennick back, Ben Mee back. And if you have those players for Sheffield's a must-win. Luton also a must-win. And then you have Everton. And maybe that's the game that sends either of them down. We'll see what Luton's able to do. Maybe it won't matter because they still have a 5-point lead over Luton. You win that, obviously, that takes points off Luton, potential points off Luton. Maybe you have a a potential 8-point lead over Luton, so it won't really matter. But if it comes down to Luton, Everton, or Brentford, that those 2 weeks decide who goes down or not, depending on, you know, the investigations out still on Everton and Nottingham Forest. And then after that, you maybe have a chance for some leeway. You have Fulham, who might not have anything to play for, and Bournemouth, that might not have anything to play for. So, and then to finally end off, Wolves and Sheffield, the game on Sunday. Sheffield with no Cam Archer, no Bremerton Diaz, but they did have Ryan Brewster. And Sheffield gave a decent performance in the first half. You know, McAtee had a pretty decent chance. Brewster, I thought but they also started fighting themselves. That was kind of weird. They had like a VAR review to maybe give a teammate a red card for trying to fight their own teammate. So that's basically where Sheffield are at right now. And then they did start the half well, and then Wolves get the first goal kinda coming against the run of play, but after that, they also had a chance to really tack on a lot, more. They went in this game without, Matheus Cunha, but, Sarabia, and Wang and Neto and, Sarabia is able to actually get them the goal. I think it's, he makes a run into the box and has a nice little head on it. And, after that, though, yeah, Wolves were very sloppy. Like, this game easily could have ended 1-1, could have eaten 2-2. And Sheffield maybe deserved to get something in the game, but that's really it. I mean, they showed some decent fight. I mean, Wolves also had a number of chances where they were in behind with ease and just kept making the wrong decision. It was kind of maddening, to be honest, because I have one of those players from my fantasy, and he was just making not necessarily the best decision when there's all this free space in front of him. People, teammates for square balls, easy square balls in the box, and they just kept. It's one thing to be like. Risk taking. It's another thing to just way too much, and that's kind of what they were doing. I think they were maybe down tooling. I don't think they respected Sheffield. There was some of that. The crowd didn't necessarily enjoy it though. The crowd was like kind of grumbling throughout the entire time, but it doesn't matter. They are able to get the win, and good for Gary O'Neill. Gary O'Neill has Wolves in a really good spot. Has them above Chelsea. Probably not far away from maybe getting it'd be getting, into the, Europe, conversation, top 8, top 7. So, awesome for O'Neal, and, I keep wanting to, uh, talk him up a little bit. I don't wanna feel like, I did it last season, and, I wanna still reward it. So, I don't necessarily know if he will ever be someone to look at for, any of these other jobs that are opening up. But, it's pretty cool what he's doing. He, what he did with Bournemouth last season. All of a sudden they decided to, ship him out. Who cares about them? He has Wolves above Bournemouth. I think that's kind of interesting as well. And, he's got Wolves in pretty good shape. So, awesome to see. Good story to see. England coach as well, English coach. And, sometimes it doesn't feel like he's spoken about enough. So, again, kudos to him and Wolves. And that's kind of it. That's the show. And I kind of went a little long. Hopefully, it wasn't like a 3-hour thing. It's not that bad at all. That's usually what I am. And so, thank you for tuning in. It was a little quick, but I did want to get the Carabao in, and so that'll be it. And so the same time this time next week. And till then, use a squatty and stop recording.